question again? That we
So
hear
is
why
it
it's not
true that you, like other politicians, don't read all the emails that are sent to you? Yes or no?
It is impossible, Justice.
Yeah. Well, in fair, the answer is yes. Yes, it is impossible. I can't read all emails.
And when you get emails with questions, you refer them to the department.
Yes, I refer them to the HOD to deal with it as a competent person.
And you blindly rely on your people in the department for what they tell you.
Correctly so.
And you have no regard to emails while you're ill.
When I am booked off by the doctor for medical reasons, and I do not know how will I, when I'm not supposed to be at work.
Just yes or no, ma'am.
When I'm booked off, and I'm not at work, and I was really sick.
My question is, do you read emails when you're ill?
I was off ill.
You're not answering the question, ma'am. Please answer the question. Is it correct that when you're ill, you don't read emails? Just yes or no?
When I'm ill, I am ill. If I'm hospitalized, I'm hospitalized. I don't know how can I have a computer or a phone when I'm in hospital or I'm at home.
Am I assuming that you say no?
It's impossible to do work when you're not well.
Ma'am, after you're better, you also don't have regard to the emails that you've received while you were ill. Is that so?
In the political office,
just yes or no,
people
ma'am?
in your office would have access to your documents, and they'll be able to deal with those even in your absence.
Yes, that's not an answer to my question, Ms. Mahlangu. It's going to be a very long day if I have to ask you every question more than once. Can we assume that when you're better after illness, you also don't read the emails that came in during your illness?
I endeavored at the time to go through all my correspondence to the extent that was possible.
So the email that was sent to you while you were ill with all the concerns, did you read that after you were better?
Yesterday, Justice, I did indicate that I do not remember the email for the reasons I stated yesterday. I also indicated through you, Justice, that I would have, I remember that the issues were raised in the meeting and they were discussed.
You haven't answered my question, ma'am. The question is, can we assume that you didn't read the email that was sent to you with all Dr. Mosenoge's problems while you were ill, that you didn't read that email after you were better?
Because I do not remember the email. What I remember is the meeting discussing issues that are purported to have been raised in the email.
But it's a fair question, Ms. Mahlangu. The question is, after you had recovered, did you read Mr. Mosenoge's email?
Justice,
we know you were not well when it arrived, but after that, did you read it?
Justice, I did indicate yesterday that I do not remember seeing the email, and my answer still stands today. I do not remember seeing the email. What I remember, the contents of what is said to have been, a mail to have been sent to me, it was those issues were raised in the meeting, and we dealt with those issues.
Your answer is, Ms. Mahlangu does not remember the email.
I want to put it to you that your evidence yesterday is you didn't read it because you were ill.
But I repeated several times that I do not remember the contents of the email. First of all, it is claimed to have been sent to me when I was not well. At that time, I was discharged on the 5th. On the 6th, I was home, and I went to Qedani Mahlangu to do an MRI on that day.
That's not an answer to my question, ma'am. Yesterday, your evidence is you didn't read it because you were ill.
The answer I just gave now, Counsel, is my answer.
Okay. You also testified yesterday that you have a total open door policy. Is that right?
Absolutely correct.
And that you are of a friendly disposition.
Excuse me?
You also testified that you are of a friendly disposition.
Yes, that is true.
And that you carry no personal blame for what went wrong in this marathon project. Is that right?
I cannot carry a personal blame
Just
when
yes
I
or
work.
no, ma'am. Please, just yes.
Justice through you. I cannot carry a personal blame when I worked in government as an elected official. And I think there's a distinction between that. Because in the position I held, I was elected to be in the legislature. From there on, I get appointed by the Premier to be in the executive. It cannot be correct that now I must talk about a personal responsibility. I carried a responsibility as an authority in government.
You've got an answer. I'm carrying responsibility as a public official, as a politician, but not personally. That's how I understand the answer. And you can decide whether you want to pursue that or not, Council.
My question to you is it your evidence, and if you could answer with a yes or no, that you carry no blame for what has happened here, other than political blame?
Council, I have indicated that what happened is regrettable, beyond any words can express how I feel.
But it's not your doing, that's your testimony, is it right?
So, and I'll continue to say that no one planned that anyone was going to die during this process.
Yes, Ms. Mahlangu, my question is to you is that for the last 2 days, it's been your testimony that you carry no blame other than the political responsibility. Is that right?
I continue to take political responsibility to the extent that I resigned and I left public office because of that.
Ma'am, I know that you're a politician and I'm a lawyer, and I need short answers and you need to talk a lot. So, but let us do what we do in arbitration. Did I understand your evidence correct, that you did nothing worthy of blame? That's your testimony for the last 2 days.
Justice, I continue to say I took political responsibility, and leaving public office, I thought it was remorseful enough to demonstrate my
Do you have any moral
regrets.
blame, ma'am?
Pardon?
Do you have any moral blame in this?
Since the events started in September, particularly looking at the number of deaths, I have struggled a lot.
My question is, do you carry any moral blame?
I'm not sure what you mean, what you imply.
So
by
why did you
concern.
answer the question if you don't understand it?
Can you please ask a question that I probably can understand? English is not my first language, by
Yes,
the way.
neither is it mine, ma'am. Did you do anything wrong in this project? Is that what you...
Simply because, and again, I'd like, with your indulgence, the Constitution, the Public Finance Management Act, which governs the relationship between, or what is supposed to be done by politician and what is supposed to be done by official, it is clear and very distinct. So my responsibility is at a broader level and to oversee government policy is implemented. The implementation side, from A to Z, it is the sole responsibility and duty of the public servants who are employed, competent, with the appropriate skills.
With the benefit of hindsight, are there any things that you would do differently?
Yes,
Same question. I've just used different words.
probably would have, I would have done things differently.
Council.
So just to cap, and if you could answer this just with a yes or a no. You have no...
Excuse me, Council.
Just let me finish, please. You carry no personal blame in all of this. Is that right?
Council, once again, I cannot carry a personal
Just
blame.
yes or no, ma'am.
I served in a public office and I assumed the political responsibility, and I cannot carry personal blame because I was not working for my personal self.
So your answer is no, you don't carry.
I do not carry personal
Thank
blame.
you.
However, I carry the political blame simply because of the position I held at the time.
Yes, because you're the MSC, you get paid to do something, isn't that so?
Because I'm elected official, yes.
And you get paid to do that.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Because if you weren't paid to do something, the department could just report to the Premier. Isn't that so? So you have a function.
And my functions are defined by
Just
legislation.
yes or no, ma'am. I'll ask you what your functions are.
My functions are defined by legislation, Council.
So you say you have a role to play?
As in defined by the legislation.
Yes. And your job is probably more than to present budgets that you have not prepared yourself.
Budgets are prepared by the Chief Financial Officer under the leadership of the HOD.
Yes. My question to you is, ma'am, please listen to the question. Your job is probably more than that.
Can you please elaborate?
More than what, Council?
Your job is probably more than to present budgets in the legislature that has been prepared by other people. Is that so?
The responsibility of any politician is defined in different legislation to oversee implementation of government policy and to ensure that things going according to plan. And if
So
they
the
don't,
answer is yes, ma'am.
and if they don't, then you work with the official to improve those things.
And your job is probably more than to appear before the Premier's budget meeting. Is
Yes,
that so?
it includes engaging with stakeholders and going to public meetings.
Yes, and your job is probably also more than just receiving reports. Is that so?
Yes, to engage with the public.
And it would be fair to say that the Premier allocated to you the area of Gauteng health.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And it would be fair to say that it is yours to implement policy and norms and standards.
Yes, to oversee those processes, yes.
No, what does the Act says? Section 25(1)
I don't
of
have
the
it in
National.
front of me,
Surely
Sister.
you, is that your only role as having been described, you would have looked at that section many times. And you've been referring to it now. What does it say?
I don't have it in front of me, Council, I'm sorry. Where's my...
I will read it to you. The relevant member of the Executive Council must ensure the implementation of national health policy norms and standards in his or her province. Surely you know of this article since you've been quoting the legislation for me all morning.
Yes, must ensure through justice. It doesn't mean that the MEC should run the department.
I'm not suggesting that. I just want to know, why is it that you didn't know of that article?
From where did you read, Council? Sorry.
Section 25 of the National Health Act.
Thank you.
I'm not following you, Councillor. I'm lost, honestly.
Are you aware of the provisions of Section 25 of the National Health Care Act?
I'm aware of the provisions of different legislation about the role of politicians in respect
No, but the
to their
specific
role.
one which was read to you now, you are surely obviously
Yes, I am
aware.
aware. Yes, I am aware,
that-
Justice.
Okay, questions will follow then, premised on that provision. Council?
Thank you, Justice. Now, when I said to you that your role is to implement policy and national norms and standards, you took issue with the word implement. Are you still taking issue with that word?
Yes, implementation doesn't mean that personally I must do it.
Well,
It means
nobody
that-
suggested that, ma'am. Why are you
But that's what
taking
you-
issue with that
but
word?
That's what you are implying, Council.
How can I imply anything if I read to you what's in the Act? I think you're implying things, ma'am. So why are you taking issue with that word?
I'm saying my responsibility in line with the legislation is to ensure that government policy is implemented.
So you don't implement policy, you don't implement norms and standards.
I oversee the implementation of those policies and norms and standards.
So the wording of the Act have got no effect on you.
It does, absolutely.
Okay. Now, policy would probably depend on legislation. Would you agree?
Yes, it derived from legislation, some from white paper, some from green papers.
Yes. And also the general govern policies, like white papers, for instance.
Yes,
A white paper is a very important thing in your job description. Would you not agree?
Yes, I did say that white paper, green paper, all of those policies.
And your implementation must also be informed by international law.
Absolutely.
And then we know about the Constitution, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And we know that you are also, in terms of Section 1 to 5 of the Constitution, must, together with the Premier, implement provincial legislation and implement national legislation. Do you agree?
Yes.
And you will also probably know about your ethical duties. Know about that?
Yes, I do.
The Executive Members Ethical Act.
Actually, I was part of the committee in Parliament when that legislation was drafted.
So that's binding on you as well.
Yes, I do know that.
And you, presumably, you are not paid to be an MEC to go and campaign for 3 months. Isn't that so?
Political work is part and parcel of what you are, it's part and parcel of our work, and being a politician, when it's a campaign or political work related for your respective party, all politicians go out and do their political work on the ground.
So you say we can pay you for 3 months to do MEC work in health while a marathon project gets people killed, and you can go for 3 months from May to July in 2016 and go and campaign.
Council, through you, Justice. Political work is part and parcel
Well, let's
of what
take it
the elected work is done.
in two bits. The first bit is, did you go campaigning in May and July 2016?
Yes, we were preparing for local government elections.
The answer is yes. Very well, we've got that part. The second part is, why did you do it whilst the marathon project was underway? That's what Council has asked you. I've just broken it in 2 parts.
Justice, the department is run by the head of department. Heads of department and all civil servants are not politicians. And there's a distinction in that, and the law is very clear on that. When politicians are out campaigning, doing political work of any kind, civil servants' responsibility is to continue to do their work. And that is really the answer. So whether the MEC is present or whether the minister is around or not, civil servants are paid as professionals to do the work that they're employed to do.
I know you sound convincing on the general. Council is asking you, why did you go away campaigning for 3 months when the marathon project was underway?
In between, I was doing government work at Council.
You see, you told the Umbud that your campaigning took you 3 months, May, June, and July.
Yes, I did say that. And,
Yes,
and
so that's true.
May I just add that, and I also further said to the ombuds that in between I'll do government work. If you notice, the day I went to Kalinin, it was in July, and the election were held on the 3rd of August. So in between, I did have meetings, and I'll go to the department. It's not absolutely correct that throughout the time I was not doing government work.
Can I read to you? This is LR 128, if you can have that.
Yes,
in
I
front of you.
have read the transcript.
Yes, ma'am. Can I please refer you to LR 128? Page 12 of LR 128.
Thank you.
Do you see that?
Yes, I am.
Are you on page 12? On the left-hand side, there's numbering. Can you go to number 15 on the left-hand side? You say, so as in the
You mean bottom, counsel, or left-hand side?
left-hand side, Judge, on page 12.
You mean 12 or 54?
Yes, that's the page, Judge.
Thank you.
Line 15. Do you see the number 15 on the left-hand side of the page?
Yes, yes, I'm there.
So, and it says so as to, and from May, June, July, to be exact, I was busy campaigning. I was not like in the department. Did you say that?
But counsel, as I said,
Did you say that, ma'am?
counsel, as I said through you, Justice, that for instance, these sentences, some of them are incomplete, and I'd like to say on record, Justice, that the answer I've just given now, that yes, indeed, we're doing political work because it was local government election. But in between that, I was attending meeting and I was doing certain things. On the 1st of July, as I said in the previous cross-questioning, that I went to Kalinen in the evening to try and look at the concerns that were being raised.
Did you say this
I
from
said that
June,
I said
May?
more than I said
Can
more
I just
than that.
finish, please? Did you say from
There's no
May,
reason for you,
June,
counsel, to be
July,
shouting
to
at
be
me.
exact, I was busy campaigning? Did you say that?
I said more than that, which is what I've just said, added now.
Yes, there are two parts to it. And again, you and counsel have to go comma, so we can get to the investigation, the inquiry, rather. The first part is the record accurate in what it reflects? That's the first part. Lawyers do that all the time. Is that correct? Then the next thing becomes, what is the explanation? Or what is the qualification, if any? So let's not collapse the two. First inquiry is, did you say that appears in the transcript?
In part, it is true, and I'd like to elaborate.
Yeah, that is fine. She'll get there. You will get that opportunity to elaborate.
But it's important, Justice, through you. It's
Yes.
important that in politics, the yes and no answer is not going to help me, because I am not used to be the yes and no answers. And if I'm being asked here to come here to present my evidence, and I'm being confined to yes and no, it disarms me in order for me to explain, because there is a context into this. Not only a context, but there is evidence that on a particular day during those elections, I would have gone out to go to the department to do departmental work, even if it was at night.
Well, there are two parts to it then. We can do it this way. First, did you say what appears there? We already have an answer, which is yes.
I said yes in part.
Two, is it all that you said?
I did say yes.
Did you qualify it then, or are you qualifying it now?
I qualified it then, and I'm still qualifying it now.
So before that hearing, you did say that you did qualify as you are qualifying the statement now.
Yes, Justice.
So the transcript is inaccurate.
There are errors in the transcript, and I've gone through it in a number of
So the transcript has failed to record your qualification.
Yes, yes, Justice.
There's your answer, counsel.
Thank you, Justice. The very next sentence, did you say the very next sentence? I was not like in the department.
I'm not sure what
You
you
don't
mean.
know whether you said that sentence or not.
But I'm still saying to you that there's errors in the recordings of this transcript.
Ms. Mahlangu, I understand what you're saying. Now, please understand what I'm asking. Did you say, I was not like in the department?
I was not doing departmental work on full-time basis.
Who told you to go and campaign?
It's my political responsibility as a politician.
Who told you to go and campaign during the marathon project?
In every election, all politicians are on the ground doing political work, because I am not a civil servant.
Who told you to go and do political campaigning?
All
while
MECs.
let me just finish, please. While there's a marathon project and people dying. Who told you to do that?
Through you, Justice, first of all, I did not know that people were dying. Secondly, we were doing political work, which happens throughout. And when it's election time, at a particular time, all politicians get involved, including the opposition, with doing political work. So there's nothing amiss or nothing wrong with me to having been on the ground doing political work, at the same time continuing to work with the HOD to oversee what I was working in the department. I don't have to be physically there for me to understand what is going on, because I'll talk to the HOD frequently.
Okay, my question has still not been answered. Who told you to go and do political campaigning during that period?
We have political parties, so each and every political party has its own structures and means of asking
Yes,
its
and your structure, Ms. Mahlangu, who told you to go?
I'm a member of the African National Congress.
Who told you to go?
Council, by who told you to go, you mean who gave you permission?
Maybe I should ask it that way around. Did somebody give you permission or instruct you to go?
But I'm a politician and I belong to a political party, and there are elections that are taking place. My responsibility, amongst others, including to serve the public in the responsibility that I've been assigned to, is to also do political work.
Yes. Ma'am, I'm not getting to the right answer. Did you just out of yourself decide, I will go there, there, and there? Or did somebody tell you to go and do campaigning?
It's our political party's responsibility.
You're not answering the question. I will leave it there.
Well, let me recast the question. Did you need anybody's permission to go and do political work? Did you have to ask the Premier, who's your immediate superior? Did you have to ask anybody? In other words, by what authority or leave did you go and do political work? Or is the answer you don't need anybody's permission? It's something that you are entitled to do?
Justice, as I was saying, that the reason why I was qualifying the statement is that as much as we were doing political work, every politician, a ruling party and opposition, we continue to do government work alongside those the political activities that we're engaging in.
There's to answer, Council.
Justice, that might be an answer, but it's definitely not the answer to my question. But Ms. Mahlangu, I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to just say that you were obstructive in not answering that question.
Of course, it will be open to you to argue that, and I'm here, I'm watching demeanor, response, and preparedness to answer questions. All those are relevant in evaluating credibility.
Thank you,
You may
Justice.
proceed, Council.
Ms. Mahlangu, the cancellation of the Life Esidemini contract, was that an executive decision?
Yes, with Monday. Remember, Council, on Monday, through you, Justice,
Yes.
I made a presentation on where the process started from 2014 onwards.
Ms. Mahlangu, believe me, I've listened to everything you said. I've read everything you said. My question to you is just a simple question. Was it an executive decision?
It was a Premier's Committee budget decision.
Sorry?
It was a PBC decision.
Would that be an executive decision?
Yes, it's an executive decision.
And in terms of
It's a subcommittee decision, a committee which has been, it's not the executive council, but it's a subcommittee that deals with budget matters.
And the decision that you're referring to that was taken by the Budget Commission, that was to cancel the Life Esidemini contract.
Council, through you, Justice, the context I've given in answering this question, that all government departments in Gauteng are asked to go and look for savings because the revenues had gone down and there were challenges with the economy and all of that. And therefore, go back and look for savings, not only on Life. I have presented the different items of what the savings were going to come from in the respective services that the department was running.
Well, the question was whose decision? Was it the decision of the Premier's Budget Committee? That is...
But we've dealt with those issues, Justice, from Monday. That when I explained that the process starts at the PBC says if you look at the presentation, and I think it may be important for me to take the arbitration through the budget, the presentation we made in the budget process, and also the subsequent presentation, because it seems like the things we've said that are contained in the presentation are not being understood. Because it's very clear in the first presentation, Justice, which was made to the Budget Committee on the excuse me, let me make a reference.
It was on the
13th of November.
Ms. Mahlangu, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I will get there.
May I finish the point, please?
Yes, you're under cross-examination.
Yes,
so
may I just...
Council's primary role, an important role, is to ask and pose the questions. And we have to be guided by the questions that she poses. We can't have a generic discussion about everything.
Absolutely.
We must respond to specific issues. Now, if the answer requires a reference to a document, you have to indicate that in a way that is clear, that will not get us locked up into a document which is not relevant to the question that Council is asking. As you'd imagine, it's a commonsensical thing. Otherwise, we'd be all over the show.
I'm with you, Justice.
Are you with me? So, I'm listening to you now. Why do you think we ought to see the document presented before the Premier's Budget Committee?
Because, first of all, the presentation made on the 13th of November 2014 by the Department of Health to the Budget Committee has no reference of the cost-cutting measures that we subsequently submitted to. That's the first point to note, and I said that on Monday. Secondly, but the presentation is there. Secondly, the subsequent presentation submitted, taking into account the comments of the Budget Committee, made on the 26th of November, talks about the cost cutting. And what are those? These are the items that I would have outlined in my statement on Monday.
Are those documents in the ELA file you gave us?
Yes, they are.
Very well. There probably would be questions on that at the time. For now, the question is narrow. Where was the decision made? Was it made at the Premier's Budget Committee? The answer could be no, not there. Or yes, it was made there. I think that's where we are. Otherwise, we're going to be so mami. Will be all over, crossing field after field. So listen to the question and let's try and keep to the question. And when it comes to a time where you think you ought to refer to the documentation, please talk to me about that. Let's understand why it is relevant. Council?
Kodwa Justice ngicela ukukhuluma.
Yeah, khuluma mama.
Kubalulekile ukuthi
ngicela ukuthi usondele please.
Okay, sorry, we're not going
The witness has just asked to speak in isiZulu.
Justice, whilst arrangements are being made to get the interpretation, we have raised the concern that we would like to get as much information as it is possible from the witness. And the concern which was raised was that it will appear that the objection to her referring to documents will in some way limit the answers which she wants to give to this hearing. And I will really implore upon you, Justice, that the witness, as and when she finds it necessary to give an explanation with reference to the documents, she should be allowed to do so. The main point is that the witness should be given an opportunity to respond to questions.
Is that a test in law? To refer to documents willy-nilly? Or is the test always relevance?
The question is relevance. It is indeed correct. The point which I'm trying to submit to you, Justice, is that the question having been raised, the witness appears to be limited to the is only limited to give an answer in the form of a yes and no. That having been done, when the witness wants to give an explanation to that answer, it is indeed correct that she must refer to documents which are relevant. And justice will not be able to make that determination of relevance unless the witness has been granted that opportunity. So relevance can only be determined after an explanation having been made to that document.
Is it your view that the witness has not been given opportunity to explain why she wants to refer to a document?
Indeed so, Justice. So that becomes very unfair and limiting to the witness, because it can only be determined that reference to that document does not assist in answering the question. But like, that determination can only come after the witness has been given an opportunity. So I really request...
I don't understand. Just put your finger on an objection. What is the legal objection you're raising?
That the witness should be given a fair opportunity to respond to questions by making reference to documents which are relevant to the answer.
To any document?
Relevant documents.
And who decides when the document is relevant?
You can decide the relevance once a reference has been made.
Do you have anything ever to say additional to that?
Nothing further, Justice.
Would you proceed, please?
Thank you, Justice.
Justice, sorry, bengicela ukukhuluma.
Yes, ma'am.
Okokuqala bengicela ukuthi ngichaze ukuthi ukuza kwami lana ngize ngokuthula, ngize ngokuthi ngizonceda iprocess ukuthi ujustice njengoba ukhethiwe ukuthi usincede ukuthi sithole ukuthi kwenzakalani with the aim yokuthi imindeni bakwazi ukuthola ukuthula at the end.
Okay, let's give the interpreter an opportunity.
Justice, may I please explain that I came here willingly, and so that I can be able to assist in the process, to assist in this inquiry, so that the families can have a closure eventually.
Kodwa into isimo ngizithola sikuso sinzima, Justice.
But I find myself in a very difficult situation, Justice.
Bengisebenza as MEC elected official through the political process.
I was working as an MEC elected through a political process.
Kodwa imibuzo engibuzwa yona technical and izinto ezikuthi akukho politician in South Africa involved ezenzayo.
The questions that are posed to me are very technical questions, and there are no politicians in South Africa who cannot understand those things that are happening.
And therefore, mangiphendula kufanele ukuthi ngithi yebo or cha.
When I respond to questions, I am instructed to say yes or no.
And angikho ukuthi kuzonceda lento lesizathu engibizele sona la ukuthi izofulfill i-objective yokuthi why ngilana mina.
I'm not sure if that will help or assist this process in fulfilling the objective of my being here.
So ngiyacela, Justice, I'm on my knees ukuthi izinto ezimayelana ne-role ye-politician ngizozama ngako konke semandla wami ukuziphendula. Kodwa izinto ezimaqondana ne-administrative, izinto ezirana i-departments ama-official, angikwazi ukuziphendula with authority because angizenzi and angikaze ngizenze and ayikho i-politician ezenzayo.
And I am making a humble request, Honorable Justice, that I am prepared to ask all questions which are relevant to my role as a political principal, but as a politician. But those issues, administrative issues, I cannot respond to those issues with authority, because those are not the things that I'm doing on a daily basis.
Okay, Mami. I think there are two parts to what you've just said. The first is, do you feel that you've been prevented from explaining context?
I feel good I'm being constrained. And I feel I'm being constrained. And secondly, that I'm being asked questions that are beyond my role as a politician?
No, there are two parts to it. We'll come to the kind of questions. But for starters, haven't you had ample opportunity to explain context every time you have asked to do so?
Yes, I've been given that opportunity, but from time to time, I sense that when I try to explain, no, we don't need long answers. We don't. And as a politician, yes or no answer, angiyazi justice. Angazi ngisebenza in an environment where I have to be, and it's my first time. Ukuthi ngize ngaphambi kojaji ngizophendula onginama-lawyer. And okwesibili justice ukuthi ngize la ukuthi kufanele ukuthi mina ngizi-prepare on my own. Ngifunde ama-document on my own. Yet, I'm a representative womndeni, correctly so, but I'm a lawyer. And both those who have passed on, those who are still alive, and including the fact that if there is even a state attorney, mina angina muntu legally ongnceda ukuthi manje fane wenza nalokhu nalokhu besides ukuthi fane bangipreparele ama-document and yiko kuphela into abayenzayo. So I feel myself ukuthi I'm disempowered, and I think I'm not able to really be the person that I am if I got the proper support through the legal team and have representatives sitting in this meeting with the authority.
Okay, Mami. As I say, there are two issues, right? On the first issue, it's a matter of judgment whether or not you are given adequate opportunity to explain. And I think I've been very patient to make sure you get the opportunity for context. And every time you need to explain, you have asked me and you continue to ask me. And that should not be a problem. But the second question, here it is a question of relevance. It's a legal consideration and a common sense consideration. One can't say everything all the time to a question that says, that possibly could be answered with a short answer. So the way we work, I could not possibly ask you whether there's a warm day and you say, yeah, nezolo bekunje kanti nokuthanga bokushisa, and go on along that route. My duty is to make sure that your answers are relevant to the facts that we are trying to probe and establish. So I sit between you and counsel. Counsel may not ask you unfair questions and must give you a fair opportunity to answer. Every time she says yes or no, it doesn't mean you're necessarily bound to say yes or no, but it will help. It will get us to the point more precisely. So in short, I'm here to protect you as a witness, but to protect all parties and make sure that there's fairness in the ability to probe the facts and fairness for you to be able to answer. But that does not mean you could answer everything. Oh, it must be things which are relevant to the probe that we are having. And who judges that is the presiding, the trier of fact. An arbitrator, a judge, an umpire must decide whether or not the facts are relevant to the inquiry or not. So I really would like to plead with you, so too with counsel, to make sure that we make progress, i.e. listen to the question and provide an answer in the language that you choose. Indeed, you could switch to English anytime, this is Zulu anytime. But it must remain relevant and something that will be able to advance the facts to be established in the arbitration. Is there anything else you want to say before I continue the examination?
Yes, Justice, I had raised the issue about my ability to prepare and read everything on my own without legal assistance, which has really hamstrung me, because as much as I try my best to read each and every document, it's impossible to remember all of them at the same time, because it's been a lot of information that I had to consume.
Yes, Mami, ayikho into yokuphoqelela ukuba ukhumbule yonke into. So, I think interpreter, when I speak in isiZulu, you must interpret for Everybody else who doesn't speak isiZulu.
Yes, Justice.
Ngithi mama ayikho into yokuphoqelela ukuba uphendule yonke imibuzo if you can't remember.
There is nothing that compels you to answer all the questions if you cannot remember.
Your duty when umele ukuba uphendule ukuba awukhumbuli.
You must respond by saying you do not remember if that is the case.
And just being, unfortunately, counsel is limited by relevance like you. If the question is relevant, she's entitled to ask it, which means that you have to answer it. And if you don't know the answer, you say so. If you don't remember the answer, you say so. But there's no limit to the questions that counsel may ask, except that they must be relevant. And you must be given a fair opportunity to answer the question. What you may not do is to refuse to answer the question. You must have an answer, yes or no, or an explanation. I think I've done my best to talk about the law of evidence and how to lead evidence in an inquiry. Is there anything else you want to ask me before I turn to counsel?
Okay, maybe Justice, you'll deal with this later.
And you talk to me all the time. I'm here also for your interest.
Okay, thank you, Justice.
And to protect you. If you have a concern, but you also must stay relevant and you must refer and cite documents and or evidence that only answers and focuses on the question that has been raised.
Okay, thank you very much,
I
Justice.
hope this is your last day. So if we work
I
together,
hope so too.
if we work together, we should be able to get to the end of your evidence.
Thank you very
Counsel,
much, Justice
You've
Musa.
had the exchange. Is there anything you want to say?
Nothing, Justice.
Nothing you want to say. Very well. Is there any counsel who wants to say anything? Very well.
Justice, I'm tempted just to make the following comment. The witness is requesting special protection from this tribunal based on the fact that she's a politician. And the fact is that we are all equal under the law and should be treated equally. And I would just like to make that point. Thank you, Justice.
Well, the point has been made, but it's a self-evident point. I thought what the witness was saying was that being a politician, she would require to put a political context to some of the answers. And I think that's not entirely unfair. Equal we are, and that's the point you made. But in a political position, there might well be more words to be used than in the legal profession.
Thank you, Justice.
Counsel?
If I could come back to my question that I asked 20 minutes ago. The question is, was the cancellation of the Life Esidemini contract an executive decision?
It's Justice, again, may I beg for indulgence? As I explained on Monday where the process started.
Before you answer, what do you mean by executive decision, counsel?
In terms of section 140 of the Constitution, it says an executive decision must be in writing. It must be signed by the Premier and countersigned by the
okay,
MEC.
let's make that clear to the witness so that she's not caught by surprise.
Yes.
Was it an executive decision as contemplated in section 149 of the 49 of the Constitution?
No, it wasn't, Justice, and I did explain that there's a budget subcommittee, which is chaired by the Premier, which looked at the budget presentation done by Health and said, you need to go back and look for cost containment. Then the subsequent presentation made on the 26th of November respond to the issues that have been raised in that, and thereafter, what is raised by the Department of Health is factored in the budget processes for the next coming financial year.
Was this a decision with legal consequences?
And there is a
I'm not
decision
following.
to terminate, right?
Yes, the decision.
The decision to terminate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, decision to terminate Life Esidemini, SLB, and also to look at all the other cost containment measures that we needed to take.
Ms. Mahlangu, my question is very simple. Was the decision to terminate Life Esidemini a decision with legal consequences?
The consequence is that you cancel the two contracts I'm referring to, Life Esidemini and SLB Park.
Would that have legal consequences?
I don't understand the question. I'm not a lawyer. Excuse
In
me,
other words,
Counsel.
was the decision one that would have legal that would bind other people, or that would change legal relationships of other people? If you make a decision to terminate a contract, the consequences would be the obligations between the parties would end.
Absolutely.
So Council is asking, was the decision one that had legal consequences?
Yes, we ended the contractual relationship with Life as well as with Selby Park Clinic Group.
So the
Clinics
answer is yes. Now, if it had legal consequences and it was an executive decision, should the Premier and you not have put it in writing and signed it in terms of Section 140 of the Constitution?
No, but Council, the Executive Council deals with very broad issues in its agenda on once a month, and the subcommittees of executive process issues which finally gets into the Executive Council. Issues relative to administrative nature of contracts and all of those are dealt with by the heads of department with the relevant officials in each and every department. And the Premier's office from time to time when requested, the legal unit, if it's legal matters and so forth, will assist that relevant department to deal with the matters that they require support on.
My question is, should it not have been countersigned between the Premier and you to
And
put this decision?
It here, Council, means the decision to terminate the contract.
Yes.
Remember, Justice, the reason why I'm explaining the roles of responsibilities, once you made a broader decision on cost, as I stipulated here, the operational issues, which means you're cancelling the contract, then everything related to that, the heads of department are responsible and they report to the members of the Executive Council, being the MEC.
Ms. Mahlangu, do you understand the relevance of Section 140 of the Constitution that says executive decisions with legal consequences must be in writing and it must be signed by the Premier and countersigned by the Executive? Do you understand that section?
Yes, I do understand.
My question is then simply, should this cancellation of the contract not have been dealt with in terms of that section?
Ever since I've been in the Executive Council from 2004, I do not remember an instance where the Executive Council discusses a matter is presented about cancellation of contracts. I do not remember such.
So is it your answer that you don't think it's necessary, or is it your answer that this Section 140 just have no use in our society?
But I'm sure the state attorney colleagues can answer better. I really don't have any. My understanding is what I've answered, Justice, and I think it suffices to leave it there.
The question is whether at the Premier Budget Committee you took the decision to cancel Life Esidemeni, or was that decision taken at another level?
But Justice, the sequence of events, and I'm really pleading that we follow through that. And I know you said I mustn't explain too much, but it's important because this is just not an isolated decision, Life Esidemeni on its own. A context is there's budgetary constraints. Everybody must go back to their department and look for savings for us to be able to continue to deliver service optimally across society using the minimal budget we have. On the basis of that, the Department of Health goes back, looking at the number of items, and Life Esidemeni is one such. So I don't know how else to explain what I'm trying to explain other than that, because I don't have any other answer or no explanation beyond what I've been saying,
Yeah,
Justice.
but listen to me. I must plead with you now. Look, it's this simple. It's Council, let's go step by step. Section 140 of the Constitution. Do you want a copy of the Constitution in front of you?
I had it. It's
requires that a decision which has legal effect must be taken by the Premier, must be reduced to writing, and countersigned by you, the MEC, responsible for the particular department. We know from your evidence that did not happen.
Yes.
So the natural question is, why was this decision not done under Section 140? And the answer may be because the actual binding decision was done somewhere else or by somebody else, or if it was done by you and the Premier, Section 140 was not followed. So what is the answer?
The answer is, Justice, that ever since I've been in the Executive Council, contractual matters have never been presented before the Executive Council for the ExCo to take a decision. So I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Why?
Probably
Because they're done by heads of departments.
But because they're done in each respective department.
Council, that appears to be your answer.
Thank you, Justice. Did you establish a provincial health council in terms of Section 27 of the National Health Act?
Yes, we had a health council.
Who was the chairperson of that council?
It's myself.
How often do you sit?
It used to be myself as the MEC for health.
How often did you sit?
I don't know. I don't have my diary, but we met, I think, once a quarter.
Did you discuss this closure of Life Esidemini and the moving of the patients at the Provincial Health Council?
I do not remember. I don't have the agenda of those meetings. I don't remember.
Should it not have been discussed at this council?
I'm not sure, Councillor.
No, you're the only person that can tell us. Would it not have been the political responsible thing to do to discuss this decision at the Provincial Health Council?
I don't think so. But as I'm saying, I don't know exactly. I don't have the agenda of our meetings, but I don't remember this matter being discussed. What I just remember,
My question to you is, would it not have been the political responsible thing to do to discuss this closure of Life Esidemini at the Provincial Health Council?
I'm not sure, actually. Because, Justice, maybe let me amplify my answer.
Yes.
In terms of the Constitution, I think schedule on the powers and functions of provinces.
Yes.
Remember, the health services, municipalities are responsible for animal health, if I'm not mistaken. National is responsible for policy norms and standards and all of that. The rest of the services, and they look at tertiary issues at national, and the province are responsible for running the entire health system. So what municipalities would do, if by implication saying they run clinic, they run those clinics as being delegated by the provincial government. So ordinarily you will have someone, when I say in our team, we had a district official represented. Those are people located in the 5 districts, Egruleni, Tshwane, Esidimeni, and all of that, who sit in the committee, but they work directly with the relevant people in municipalities in ensuring that the clinic that they've been delegated to run, they run smoothly. So that's, I'm not sure, that the reason why I'm struggling to understand the relevance of discussing that question, the issue with municipalities, would be the relevance of it.
What does the Provincial Council do? What are its powers and purpose?
The Provincial Health Council?
Yes.
Is to discuss, I think, oh my word, can't really recollect now, but it's to discuss the running of the health system and to ensure that the clinics are run smoothly. And sometimes we will complement the resources in terms of employment of staff, but the bulk of the resources are provided by the provincial government.
Who chairs the Provincial Health Council?
It's myself, it's the MEC of Health, sorry. Yes.
And the question is, wasn't it prudent or proper to deal with the termination of the Life Esidemeni contract at the Provincial Health Council? That's what the question is.
But Justice,
I don't say it should or should not do it. I'm just explaining the question to you again.
But my answer was, the answer I was giving earlier on about the roles and responsibilities in accordance to the schedule of the Constitution and the responsibilities thereof. And may I really beg to explain for 30 seconds that cancellation of contracts, be it an administrative issue, yes, the implication of that would be factored into our discussion and as to ensure that in clinics and all the services that are delivered, including in the NGOs, municipalities and councillors are aware of what would have been happening. So in that context, maybe we should it should have been discussed there so that councillors and the officials are aware that NGOs are doing working with this. But I think that there's been that interaction with the respective municipalities.
You've given us an answer. You think, on second thought, it should have been discussed there. Council?
And one would have expected a politician of your seniority and having been an MSc of Health before would have realized this earlier, wouldn't we?
Well, I'm not sure about that and specifically, yeah.
Yeah, you want to be asked political questions. I'm asking you political questions now, MSc. Should you not have thought of that before today?
Maybe.
I would have said that the answer to that cannot be a maybe. That's just irresponsible, I will argue. What do you say to that? Are you going to answer the question?
And the question is, it is irresponsible.
The answer cannot be maybe. It is irresponsible to not have done this before.
That is the proposition put to you. It is put to you that it is irresponsible not to have thought about it and done it before.
Maybe yes, maybe no.
Okay. I will leave the answer at that, Justice, and I will argue on that. Was there a provincial consultative body as set out in Section 28 of the National Health Act?
Can you please repeat your question?
Yes. Have you established a provincial consultative body as is your duty in Section 28 of the National Health Act?
You think this? I think it's called a stakeholder forum or something like that.
Do you have that?
Yes, it is. It does. It is. It has been existing ever since I've been around.
Do you chair those meetings?
And I remember we had one meeting. We discussed NHI, and I can't remember what else was discussed in that meeting. It was what was it? Yeah, I remember the meeting we held, and I think we discussed issues related to NHI.
So you remember one meeting of the provincial consultative body?
The meeting is supposed to be held once a year, if I'm not mistaken.
And you remember such meeting?
I think so. I can't recollect at this moment how many of those meetings were held.
Was the closure of Life Esidemini ever discussed at these
No,
meetings?
it wasn't.
Should it not have been discussed at
I don't think so.
And why do you say so?
Because the Just Council, I don't, at the time when we took the decision, and as I said, in respective, the answers I've been giving throughout, was that the work we were doing in respective to the transferal of the patients from the Life Esidemini to the NGOs. It was an internal departmental work, and the officials, in my understanding, were working with a range of stakeholders, including an important stakeholder in this instance being with families, through the family committees that was established. So when you're dealing with the matters of just simply about concluding the contractual issues, and then the next phase will be, then you go to the stakeholder forum to say, how do you strengthen the community? But during the implementation, I think it will be inappropriate to start engaging and mobilizing stakeholders, yet it will be important to mobilize stakeholders once you completed that and say, how do we strengthen these services and ensure that every stakeholder in the community is involved?
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Chairman.
in fact, you're saying it was not, you didn't think it was necessary to take it to the provincial
Before the
consultative body.
before the conclusion of all the processes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Mahlangu. I will interrogate you on that issue at a later stage when I speak about consultative processes. But your answer suffice for now is, as a senior politician, you didn't think you need to
I
speak to
said
them.
before we concluded the processes.
Are you aware of the Minister of Health's presentation in Parliament on what he called the mental health patient strategy?
I heard about it.
It was in February 2017.
I wasn't around, so.
Yes. I want to just put to you one issue that he raises. I will deal with this document still extensively. But what he said in his speech, maybe I can take you there, is LR84, LR84. Have you got the document in front of you?
No, I don't have.
If we manage on it.
Which file?
Do you have the document LR84 in front of you?
Yeah.
The heading reads, Minister Aaron Motsoaledi address on Life Esidemini mental health patient strategy in Parliament, and it's dated 23 February 2017. Do you see that?
Yes.
If you go down, there's numbers on your left-hand side on the first page. Do you see number 35 on your left-hand side?
Yes.
Do you see the paragraph starting just before that number at the national level?
Yeah.
Could you read that paragraph, please?
At the national level, we have a MINMEC, which is in the case of health, is called the National Health Council. Like all MINMECs, it consists of minister as chairperson and all MECs, HODs,
Yes, could you just read the next paragraph?
But in addition and different from other MINMECs, it also has a Surgeon General from the South African Military Health Services and representatives from SALGA. It is therefore a statutory body. When there are huge undertakings in health or elsewhere that may affect the health, the NHC sits and even go into into a recess to interrogate issues. It did so with the FIFA 2010. It did so before the president launched the huge ACT campaign to test the 15 million South Africans in 2010. It did so with Ebola in 2014.
Could you read the next paragraph, please?
I want to state here today that the issue moving of mental health patients in Gauteng, which clearly falls within the categories I have mentioned above, never came to the National Health Council to be dealt with like all other major events.
Is the minister correct to say that this should have been discussed at that meeting?
Well, I'm not sure exactly in what sense, because the agendas of MINMEC are determined by the minister.
Yes, but...
And the agendas of MINMEC then are discussed prior that by HODs and the Director General.
Okay,
and furthermore, may I really explain, the Director General convenes technical meetings of HODs, and as you've seen, the Director General and the HOD were working together in December 2015 relating to issues of Life Esidemini.
Okay, can I ask you this? If the minister wasn't aware of this, could you have placed it on the agenda?
The reason why I did not place the matter on the agenda, nor did the minister ask the matter to be placed on the agenda, because both of us at the time did not anticipate that there were going to be such consequences after once the consultation was cancelled. Simply, that is an honest and genuine answer.
Okay, I just want to know about you now. We'll get to the minister. You didn't think it necessary to place...
Because I had no reason to believe...
Let me just finish, please, Ms. Mahlangu. You didn't think it necessary to place the closure of Life Esidemini before such an important statutory body?
First of all, as I continue to say that the issues, as I said in my primary presentation on Monday, that I had no reason to worry that information given to me was incorrect and the decision or the execution will result into the consequences that we are dealing with today. So as a result of that, I did not present the matter to the NHC. Yeah.
To which MAC now?
To the NHC.
Oh. So you didn't think it's necessary that somebody with a little more insight and perhaps somebody with a little more objectivity should interrogate your decision and the implementation thereof?
I'm not sure what you mean when you talk about with a little bit more insight.
Should somebody not have advised you on this?
But I'm saying to you, Council, the Director General, Precious Matsuso, and Banil Silibano, the HOD then, were working together in my understanding. So both of them are qualified medical practitioners.
Yes. My question to you is, MEC, there is a statutory body that the Minister of Health thinks is a relevant body to assist, and you didn't seek its assistance.
Because I was not aware of the problems, which finally came into result into what we are dealing with today.
Okay, I'm going to take you just a little bit back. When the decision was taken, you didn't seek their counsel.
Excuse me?
When you took the decision, you didn't seek this statutory body's counsel.
But the cancellation of contracts in every province relating to the day-to-day operation of executive, that is not discussed in any political forum. That forum discusses policy matters. Normally, the typical agenda when I was sitting in those meetings at Justice, it will be issues of, what do you call this? The NHI implementation and progress report to that. It will be how clinics are being aligned across the country and all of that. It will be issues relating to NHLS, particularly because of the problems that and costing exercise that was being looked into and models to get NHLS to function properly. It will be the top priorities that the minister is concerned about in terms of making sure that the essentials relating to the running of the systems, those will be presented. And I can go on the agenda, but the agenda, it's a standard agenda more or less. From time to time, of course, during the Ebola, it will add an item on the Ebola, but the item is more or less standards that is reporting largely by national and provinces are participating in that.
Of course, for my MEC, the big question in this question is, as you know, the minister thinks you ought to have brought this to the National Health Council. Do you share that view?
Justice, if I had the information I have now or then in September 2016, I would have had a discussion with the minister. Even on the morning when we had this discussion with the minister before our formal meeting, I said to him, he said, Qedani, what is happening? I see this matter on the newspaper. And what's happening, and I explained to him. And he said, so what are you doing about it? And I explained, then he says, I'll assist you. That's a discussion we had with the minister on this matter.
When was this?
That was on the 14th of September, when we were before the meeting we had to discuss the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital.
But before we lose our way, because council dictates the line of questions, is the minister thinks you ought to have brought it to the National Health Council. Let's just wrap that up and move on. You obviously think differently, do you?
No, I don't think differently, but the context is this, Justice. If I had known, I had the facts that now have been revealed to the public, I would have. my understanding that I had a good relationship with the minister. I could raise issues with him upfront and telephonically every day. So I had no reason to hide any information from anybody.
Look at the examples in that paragraph you've just read. The minister thinks the council could be helpful in a futuristic way. In other words, it's not a place where you say, oops, what happened? It's a place where you say, oh, this is how we ought to take precautions. You get his point. Look at the paragraph you've read. He thinks the council must be used to prevent Ebola, to anticipate the World Cup and the problems that might come around it, and so on and so on. So it's a body that ought to look at the future. And you saying to us, well, now that I know a mess up occurred, I should have taken it to the National Health Council.
Hindsight, justice is the best science. That when you reflect on matters that I should have, I could have, and it's already late. And I think it's important to really say that, and I said, if I had the facts that I have now, we could have done things differently. If I were to turn the clock, I will do things differently. And I think that is important.
If you knew the risks, you would have taken it to the National Health Council.
Yes, absolutely. And I would have also taken it to the Executive Council to ask for that this the administrative matter, which is likely to have the such risk, let it be discussed in the Executive Council. I would have done that.
Council.
Thank you, Justice. Part of political leadership is to consult widely. Do you agree?
Yes, indeed.
And you would agree with me on these instances that we've now dealt with? You did not even use the statutory structures to consult.
But because I did not anticipate the outcome that we finally had.
So, Ms. Mahlangu, what you're saying is I had no insight because I didn't want to ask other people's views. Is that what you're saying?
But, Council, when you run a department, and because I was not new in service, or I didn't come out of high school or primary school, and I hop into the job. So I understood how to run the services and over a period of time. And on those bases, I understood that what we were trying to do had no intention of having negative consequences. But in the benefit of hindsight, clearly probably we could have done things differently. And that is what I'm saying, Justice.
What I'm putting to you is that you did not consult as you should have before you made the decision.
Before making the decision, the consultation probably could have been to have a thorough discussion with the minister and have a formal something in writing. Yes, that I agree.
And speak to experts in the field. But we'll get to that. I just want to put it to you, by not using these statutory bodies that we've now dealt with, you didn't act as a political leader should have acted.
I disagree with you, because I did not have the information I have now.
Okay. Let us continue. You offered 3 reasons for this marathon project. Is that correct?
I offered 3 reasons for the broader cost savings that we're dealing with, including Life Esidemini.
And could we just establish these 3 reasons? Were you considering them at the time that you made the decision? Or were they thought of later on?
But I said that in my statement on Monday, Council.
Well, can you please answer my question? Was those 3 reasons thought of at the time of making the decision, or were they thought of later on?
I think they're part and parcel of decision making.
Can I ask you again? Were those 3 reasons thought of at the time of making the decision, or were they later on
They were
added?
part of the decision making in the process.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to deal with these 3 reasons just very quickly. My learned friend for Section 27 has dealt extensively with the economic reason, the cost-cutting issue. Would you say that is the most important reason?
The reasons were deinstitutionalization, cost saving, which were applied in the other areas, including life, and the issues consistently raised by the Auditor General with evergreen contracts.
Yes. My question to you, were the cost issue foremost in your mind?
All of them were foremost in our mind, because if you don't get a clean audit, you don't deal with the issues raised by the AG, you are not going to get a clean report or an unqualified
Are you
report.
correct in that?
Pardon?
Are you correct to say they were all three equally important to you?
They were important in the decision making, not to me. These were not my personal issues, were issues dealing with as a collective in the department.
You see, the first time that this issue was raised was on your version, when the Budget Committee told you to go back and look for cost saving. Isn't that so?
Yes, in presentation number 2 on the 26th
Yes.
of November.
So if you were thinking of the other two issues, you would have raised them yourself. It was only when the cost issue came up that you thought of this plan. Isn't that so?
We thought of this contract along with the other things that are presented.
I'm just merely trying to establish whether the cost issue was an important one for you.
All of them were important.
Okay, let us go there. You already told us that the idea of cancelling Life Esidemini contract was that the bulk of the patients would go to hospitals and not to NGOs. Is that right?
Yes, that's what I was briefed by the officials.
And you already told us that these hospitals' costs per day per mental health care user would be 6 times that of Life Esidemini.
Because those mental health care users would be taken to those hospitals after assessment by medically qualified personnel. They would have determined that they do not need to go to any place but other than the places that they were sent to.
You're looking in your crystal ball and decide most of the patients will go to hospitals, but the hospitals will say, no, they don't need to be there. Is that what you're saying?
No, but you're twisting my words.
No, I'm just
You are asking me about the costs at
Mm.
the, for instance, Vescopis and Sterkfontein, and I'm answering you on those costs.
Yes.
That when you take someone, and again, I'm going to repeat an example. If I go and get treated with flu at a clinic, I don't know how much it costs, but probably it's likely to cost less than less than 200 rands. If I go and get treatment for flu here at Charlotte, which is just next door, I'm going to pay 1,500 rands or so because of the caliber of people who are going to see me at a central hospital vis-a-vis when I go at a clinic level. So that's what we are dealing with here in terms of the cost associated with those mental health care users who would have been transferred to a central hospital like Vescopis as well as Sterkfontein, because they're teaching platform, but also you have a lot of senior professors and doctors and nurses in those hospitals.
Ms. Mahlangu, you're saying I'm turning around your words, but if you just ask my question, there wouldn't be an opportunity for this. My question to you was merely, you said yesterday that a mental care health user at these hospitals will cost you 6 times more than it would have cost at Life Esidemini. Is that not what you said yesterday?
But that's what the council said.
And
I
you
was
agreed.
responding to that. And I'm explaining the context of my answer.
Yes,
That
so
the treatment, council, the treatment, and it's important that this context be explained and explained over again. Treatment in Sterkfontein and Vescopis are not clinics. They are not NGOs. They are a training platform. They have senior doctors and nurses there. So when a person is treated there, the costs are associated with the caliber and qualification and expertise of those individuals.
Of course, we could say, yes, it costs more to treat the patient as Sterkfontein, but here is the reason. And I think that's what you really are saying, isn't it?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
So English, sorry, just this English.
No problem. The
fails
answer is
me.
yes. It
Thank
costs
you
more,
very much,
but there's a
Justice.
reason for it, and the reason is this.
So logically, if you take the patients from Life Esidemini and you put the bulk of them in these hospitals at 6 times the cost, it's not going to be cheaper.
But remember, council, if you want to provide quality care and in the assessment of the medically qualified professionals who would have assessed those patients or those mental health care users, excuse my error, and then said, these ones need to go to these hospitals and be looked after by the hospital, and those who need less intensive care or much more vigorous intensive care, not ICU in that sense, can be in the hospital in a section maybe managed by the NGO. I don't know. Remember, I don't make these decisions. These decisions are made by the relevant clinicians and the qualified medical people.
Yes, my proposition to you is just simple. If you take one person and you put it in a hospital, you pay 6 times more for him. And you take 6 persons and you pay 6 times more, then you pay what you've paid for 36 people in the first hospital. So it's not a cost-cutting measure.
And there's a context to that
yes,
explanation.
I'll accept that, ma'am. We're just on the costs now. So you agree with that? That couldn't have been a cost-cutting measure.
But the answer should always be seen in the context I'm explaining it.
Yes. Let us try my context of the questions now. You also had to do renovations to hospitals. Isn't that so?
Yes, that was planned, and they happened.
And that's costs that you would have to incur.
Yes, those costs were incurred, yes,
yes,
and they were planned.
So it's not a cost-cutting measure.
But you're improving the quality of places or where the mental health care users must be.
Yes, and you told us that the idea was to absorb the staff of Life Esidemini.
Yes, that's what I was made to understand, and that's what I would have agreed to.
Yes, and that was a noble idea, but that's not a cost-cutting measure, isn't it?
So what were we supposed to do with the staff then?
No, I'm asking you the question, so if you could just answer the question, please.
So you're saying taking staff, absorbing staff from Life into the department in different programs is not a cost saving. So I'm not sure what exactly we should have done. We should have left them outside.
Now, I think the drift of the questions are, the purpose of the program was to cut costs. And Council is going through item by item to test whether you would have saved money or spent more money. I think that's the debate.
Justice.
So the next question is, if you had reabsorbed the workers, you would not have saved unemployment costs. And what is your response to that?
I don't know how much money was saved because I'm no longer in the system. When the financial year ended, I was not in the system. So I can't answer how much exactly did the department save money or not. But I know in the 2015-16 financial year, I think there was a 20 or 30 million rand or so that the savings that we realized out of that. But beyond that, I wouldn't know exactly how much when the financial year ended in 2017 when I was no longer in the department.
Ms. Mahlangu, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to realize. If Life Esidemini are paying for their staff, and you now take over their staff, that you are not saving costs for yourself. You are incurring costs. Do you agree with that?
We're incurring costs, but we're also protecting the jobs.
Well, you could have protected the jobs by not cancelling the contract.
Council, through you, Justice, the assumption the Council is making, and I think it's important that I've been given an opportunity to explain this. The very same jobs that the Council is talking about alive, those employees had no benefits, by the way. And they only get benefits. A lot of people who work in private companies do not get benefits. So in actual fact, their quality of jobs improved once they were absorbed by government. And that is important to factor that in this equation when we're having this discussion.
So was that one of the things that you took into consideration when you took the decision?
No, that's not one of the things. The thing was we took into consideration was to make sure that the workers are not left in the ledge without protecting them because they have families.
I'm just trying to find out what your thought processes was at the time of the cancellation.
No, I wouldn't be able to trace my thoughts back then, madam.
Oh, okay.
I don't have my notes, so I won't be able to trace them back.
Well, then we'll work with logic. We know if we have the patients in Life Esidemini, you don't have to pay 6 times per patient in the hospital. You agree?
It depends.
Will you also agree it wouldn't have been necessary to make renovations to the hospitals?
It was necessary to make renovations in the hospital because we need we need to renovate those wards in any event.
It wouldn't have been necessary to employ Life Esidemini staff.
We need more workers, so in private we would have employed those workers in one form or the other because we're running short of nurses and doctors.
Well, I want to put it to you that logic dictates on what I've said so far, that it wasn't a cost-saving mechanism.
Well, as I said, Justice, that answer probably can be given better by my comrade, who will probably come here and present. She will probably give a better sense of the issues relating to the specificities of this matter. But at the moment, I can't.
Yes, while we're there, Council, you've alerted the MEC that we're going to require her to speak to the budget, and in particular, line item expenditure. Before I forget, sorry, was that, I don't know if I was loud enough. Have you managed to find, I let the MEC current that she'll be asked to tell us about the expenditure of the 190 odd million rand that appeared on the budget as being for NGOs related to mental health care users.
Justice, as part of the preparations for the MEC, those are the matters which will be presented before these proceedings. And it is a matter which will then be attended as and when she'll be given the platform to come before these proceedings.
Very well. To save time, I don't want it to come and say, I didn't anticipate this, I don't have my papers with me. That is why I'm taking the precaution.
Thank you, Justice.
Thank you. Would you proceed, please?
Thank you, Justice. Well, on the logic side of it, it couldn't have been a cost-cutting measure. Now my question to you is, have you done a cost analysis before making this decision?
Oh, my apology, Council. I think the officials worked on those details and
I'm talking to you as the political head, the political leadership that must give guidance. Did you ask for a cost analysis to be done?
I think they did it. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah. My question is, did you ask for a cost analysis to be done?
I think it's in somewhere in the documents. I don't know exactly which one, but I'm sure they did it. I think so.
You're not answering my question, Ms. Mahlangu, please. Did you ask for it to be done?
Council, what I know is what I've presented in my statement, and I think there's this document I was talking to yesterday. Just give me 2 seconds. The file I submitted yesterday, oh yeah, this one, which the LR132, on the document I was referring to, which has a list of a project manager who appointed the project manager. If you go, for instance, page 4, and I want us to go back to that page, which I think I'm referring to it for a third time. So this would be the cost details that I would have been exposed to when the officials were presenting, and on the basis of that, of course, the discussion would have been held, and how do we deal with such issues. So page 4, I think that information is appropriate, and because some of them is for the previous financial has been audited, and it's some information that is correct.
Let me help. Can you help me understand the slide on page 4?
So what is simply saying, Justice, that through you, that yes, the budget, what was happening actually with the department, and this is in keeping with the issue I've been raising of the difficulties with the budget and the cost overruns, because in the Department of Health, you cannot say no to people with regard to services. So whether there's money or not, you have to give the services. So in this instance, the department budgets for 194 million rands, but the actual expenditure is 209 million.
And this is for Life Esidemini only?
Yes, this is for Life Esidemini only. And yes, that straddles across the different financial years. In 2003 to 2013, 2012, 2013, the budget is 203, 203 million. Then the actual expenditure is 224. And the 2013-14, the budget is 213 million, and the actual expenditure is 234 million. In 2014-15, the budget is 251 million, and the expenditure is 323 million. And so, the reason why I'm coming back to this issue is to demonstrate over and over again the challenges faced by the Department of Health. The cost overruns not only on Life Esidimeni, but across all services that are being run. You can look at the Steve Biko budget, you can look at Charlotte and whatever else. So when all is said and done, if indeed government says continue to run the department on this basis, all other departments will cease to exist.
Let's talk about 2015, 2016.
Yes, yes, Justice.
The overrun seems to have been reversed and actual expenditure kept at 176 million as against 265.2 million budgeted. Do I understand the slide well?
You're understanding it correctly, Justice.
What reduced that expenditure, actuals, so much?
I think one of the things, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm speaking under correction here because I don't have the actual facts before me, what my understanding is, remember, we were talking about the reduction per annum of that Life legislated that they should reduce the number of mental health care users every year by a certain number. And in the previous years, they would not be doing so. Instead, they'll be making sure that people stay and want to have more mental health care users so that the budget, what they then get is more budget.
So this is the impact of the 20%
I think
bed reduction program, is it?
I think it's a 20%, and I think there was a weekend, the weekend visits to families were really encouraged during this time. Previously, and when the mental health care users were going home, Life was supposed to indicate those in their books, but before they were managed properly, they were not doing those. I think that's the issue. I may not be 100% accurate with figures, and I think probably the colleagues who's representing the state may bring those details into bear.
Your department was doing good progress in reducing actual expenditure, was it?
That's when we started in 2015-16. We only started in 2015-16.
And for the year that you started,
that was 15-16.
You
Justice.
saved nearly what, 80 million?
Just in
90 million.
In the 15-16 fund.
Yes, the 2015-2016 financial year.
Yeah.
You saved 90 million in actuals. But that's the same year that you made the decision to terminate.
Yes, Justice. It will fall into the March 2016 financial year, calendar year.
And if you had shown patience, the next year, would the actuals have dropped? In other words, if you kept continuing with the 20% bed reduction program?
Probably, and as I'm saying, the actuals, the details, I think the colleagues in health would be able to deal with that in the 16-17, because probably the best budget that will give you a true reflection is the 16-17, which started on the 1st of July, because that's where the actual effect of what the department were doing.
So from my MEC, you had this under control, didn't you? The numbers were going down, and the discharges were now being more tightly monitored by your department.
Justice, please don't take the word I'm saying I said to you, subject to the facts from the department as to what is attributable actually to this 176.
Yes, no, we will ask.
But yes, but I'm saying, I think from what I remember from my memory, this could be one of those reasons, but the actual information could come from the department itself.
Yeah, but I mean, you know where I'm going. It's not complicated. I'm just saying, if you had kept the 20% bed occupancy reduction at Life Esidemeni, the probabilities are that the actuals would have continued to drop.
Yeah, probably.
I'm just looking at the graph that you, the slide that you
I'm saying probably
refer us to.
Yes.
Yeah. it coincides with Dr. Mkhacho's evidence. So it's quite consistent. This graph is consistent with Dr. Mkhacho's evidence that the numbers were indeed reducing, and the 20% bed occupancy reduction was seeing less and less expenditure. And the question you can sense yourself coming, why not wait for a year or 2 or 3 and move into the accelerated marathon project?
But Justice, as I said in my in my different answers, that we did not anticipate that the outcome of the decision will be that. And I continue to say that the challenges that the department was faced with, and I'm talking was because of the past, were really, really genuine and real. So, as I said, when benefit is, hindsight is always the best, helps you to think better as to what you could have done better. So that's my response.
Yeah, okay, I'll leave it there. I mean, that's what Council was asking about cost saving. I'm just saying, on the graph you have, I mean, the slide you've shown us,
Yes.
the bed reduction program was yielding results because you saved 90 million in the first year. Mr. Musinochi, Dr. Silibano, certainly Dr. Mkhacho, they all decried that acceleration that started around, that really went fast from May, and say that is what caused the stampede and the rushed displacement of patients into NGOs. And if this had been kept, lives would have been saved. What is your comment about that? Do you agree with that?
But Justice, no, I agree with you, and then I also want to give a context, Uti. As I've been continuously saying, when you are given information, you agree to this, the colleagues go, and the civil servants, they go and do the work, they come back, say, give impression that things are going okay. So you've got no reason to believe that the consequences will be this, and the outcome will be the negative consequences we're dealing with today.
Yeah, but you and me are quite senior now, and we're looking with hindsight. Angitima.
Yes. No, I'm with you, I'm with you, Justice.
Yeah. And we quite senior. We're not, I mean, this is not a critical thing. I'm sitting and saying, what went wrong? Listen to the evidence. Dr. Mkhacho was emphatic. For instance, if there was no accelerated marathon project, costs would have been reduced gradually. And maybe you'd have even afforded to buy them out, he says in his evidence. And I look at the slide, which I hadn't seen until now. You had made a saving of nearly 90 million on actuals. So shouldn't there have been more patience and give it a year or 2 or 3?
In hindsight,
everybody
yes.
would have been saved, isn't it?
In hindsight, yes.
Jobs would have been saved, patients would have lived, and we wouldn't be here.
In hindsight, Justice, yes.
Council.
I'm just going to tie up this graph that you've now referred us to. Is that the only...
Is that a graph or a slide, Council? The last time I was at mathematics class, I think graphs looked a little different.
Maybe I need an interpreter, Justice.
Okay.
The cost in the document that you've just referred us to, was that the only cost that you looked at to make the decision as a cost-saving measure?
We looked at all aspects in the department.
Yeah.
If you go to the presentation on Annex, I think it's not in this file.
Ms. Mahlangu, before we go to another document, let me just clarify what I'm asking you, and then if you feel it's necessary, we can go there. Insofar as Life Esidemini is concerned, was that the figures that you were looking at?
Across the board, what we're supposed to save is 700 million rands.
Can I ask my question again? Insofar as Life Esidemini, this table that the Justice has just referred you to, or you referred us to? Were those the only figures that you have?
I'm not sure. I can
Maybe
just have
if
to
you
check.
could just stop fiddling and listen to
But
my
I'm
question,
trying
then
to
you can get the...
No, I'm listening to you, Council. I am.
My question to you is a straightforward question. Please just look at me while I'm speaking to you.
Council, that is fine, that is fine. Look at me, stop fiddling, and so on. Let's give the witness a little break there. Okay, you asked the question. Her duty is to answer the question. And some judge said not to look at you. Very well. Please ask the question. And
The question was, insofar as Life Esidemini, were those in the table that you've just referred us, was that the only figure that you had in front of you?
I don't know at this moment whether there were any other figures.
Okay.
I just have to refresh my mind.
Thank you. Now, could I then ask you my initial question before you referred us to that table? Did you personally ask for a cost analysis to be done prior to taking the decision?
The official in the Department of Health, they're very competent. I think we had a health economist in the CFO's office, so I don't know the actual thing. I think they would have done an exercise. I'll just have to get that information. So,
Ms. Mahlangu, please, I've asked this question many times, and somehow you're not answering it. My question to you is, you personally, did you ask for a cost analysis to be done?
Council, I've been out of the system at least close to a year now, and I do not have access to live information from the Department of Health, which will give me information now and this and this and that. If I had known the questions you were going to ask about those things specifically, I would have endeavored through my council to get that information before you so that I can answer you.
I thought the question for my MEC was, at the time of decision making, had you made a cost analysis other than what appears on the slide? I think that is the question.
Justice, I think it was done, but I'm saying as I'm sitting here now, I can't remember that document and exactly what, so, but I'm sure if the colleagues from health can, and I'm sure they'll find something like that, but I remember something of that kind, but I don't know exactly where is it, because I don't have, I'm not active live in the system.
I understand. You can't remember now, but you think most probably it had been done.
It should have been done, yes.
Yeah.
I think it was done.
That's your answer, Council.
Would you agree with me that you couldn't have made an informed decision without a proper cost analysis?
Yes, of course.
And as a political leader, you would have asked for that, would you not?
Yes, I would have.
And you would have looked at the figures, would you not?
Yes.
So we can accept that you've seen a cost analysis.
I'm saying to Council, if you look at the slide, I think it's page 62 on the cost saving, on the L132, it talks about inward-looking savings, outward-looking revenue funding, potential saving, risks, effect, effort versus impact. It talks about those things in all the items that were identified as part of the cost saving. So this short presentation would be informed by a thorough analysis that would have been done in the office of the CFO, because there you had a lot of competent people. Again, if you want the detail of that, I'm sure if I had known yesterday that you're going to ask this information, I would have gotten access to it and be able to answer you.
My question to you is more in the line of Life Esidemini. Before you cancelled this contract, did somebody look and saying, it's cost us so much per patient, but now if we go there, it will, to Weskop, it will cost us so much, to employ the staff, it will cost us this much. Was that ever done?
I think so, but Council, again, I do not have that information before me, and I don't have access to those documents.
Okay. Now, as a responsible politician, and to give leadership, you would have looked at that if that was done.
Yes, I think I looked at it, but I do not have access for him. When I left Government Council, as a matter of fact, I handed over everything to government because I no longer I have a duty to be carrying government information. So if indeed I was still in government, I would have said to you, I'll probably go to look in my office and to look somewhere else. So that is really the truth. I do not have that information. But I remember something of that was, we had a discussion of with the HOD and the CFO around those issues.
So the Health Advance Institute's very expensive report saying Life Esidemini is good money, good value for money.
I think that the high report was part and parcel of that work done by the health economics in the department under the leadership of the CFO.
So you would have had regard to that as well?
I think they took all of those issues into consideration. As I'm saying, the final product of the department from what the high would have said, it will be including those issues.
You personally would have taken that into account?
But it can be personal. Government decisions are not made by individuals. And I want to continue to make this point. There is no one person who sits and say, now we do this. If you look at the budget, the justice that I shared with you yesterday, the 184 million you're talking about, look at the numbers of signatures there. No, none of them is my signature. It's the chief director responsible for budget. It's the chief director responsible for this. It's the CFO, and it's the HOD and DDG, which is Dr. Libete. None of those signatures is mine, simply because of the hierarchy in government in making decisions. It cannot be correct that all the time, you. It can't be. That's a collective decision. Indeed, that's how government works.
So
and this is my true and honest answer to the justice.
Are you saying that you did not provide leadership and say to them, hey, are we now really taking a good value for money and changing it to something else?
We've had those discussions at council.
Okay. Judges, I see that it's past our tea time.
It is tea time, but I think you do have an answer. The answer is, if I had access to my documents, I would have checked the known of the financial exercise, and 2 decisions are collective. I think that's the answer. We'll have to move on after tea. We're going to take the adjournment now, and we resume at 12 o'clock. We're adjourned.
I'm not going to finish by 3. I thought I was going to finish by 3.
1, 2. 1, 1, 2.
Uyangithola mtshana? Right? Ah. One, two. Hayi ngiyasuka ke la. But ngiyasuka la mtshana ngeke. Hayi.
Ngiyashitha kule seat.
This city is hot, eh? Hi. I'm Chanai. Serious, ang chuluga makwapa la. All right, sharp. Thank you.
tired, that's all.
You're doing well.
Thank you.
You're doing well.
Thank you. You may be seated. You're still under your previous oath, Ms. Mahlangu.
Yes, Justice.
Yes, thank
I'm
you.
aware.
Counsel.
Thank you, Justice Musenehe. Ms. Mahlangu, I'm now going to move to your second reason for closing Life Esidemini, and that's deinstitutionalization. You referred to in your statement that you we're doing this for acceptable international practice. Remember saying that?
Yes.
What did you understand under acceptable international practice?
That mental health care users will be taken to communities. Mental health care users will be located within communities, largely run by NGOs in environment that is not constrained.
Did you do research on that?
Pardon?
Did you do research on the acceptable international practice?
I didn't do it personally, and I think the officials have looked at a number of aspects.
Do you know what aspects they looked at?
I think the template that they use to look at the NGO, in my understanding, is that template talks to those fundamental issues about the quality of the infrastructure as well as, yeah, let me leave it there.
Have you asked the World Health Organization for any assistance?
I think I remember talking to Professor Freeman about that, because the province will not do it directly. We'll have to work with the Department of Health, the national, as the appropriate body that lies with the multilateral bodies like the WHO.
Yes, Ms. Mahlangu, let us just clarify. These questions that I'm asking you now is not ex post facto, is not speaking to Professor Friedman after the deaths have occurred. At the time of taking this decision, have you spoken to the World Health Organization to find out what is best practice?
Personally, I would not speak to the WHO because the HOD, working with the Director General and the appropriate officials at the national level, would do such engagements.
As a political head that's responsible and want to take the right decision, did you encourage this to happen?
Yes, I assume that was happening because we said we want to comply with the norms and standards, and that really talks to the issues that are at the WHO.
Encourage and assume are two different verbs, in my understanding. You say you assumed they've done that. I've asked, did you encourage them to do so?
Yes, I encouraged them.
Can you remember saying that to them?
Well, that's a long time ago,
Okay.
Council.
Did you see any reports of best practices shown to you?
No, I didn't see any.
Should you, as a political head, to take an informed decision, not have seen that?
I'm not sure exactly where you're leading to, but if probably you are saying we didn't look at best practices and in implementing this project, I would say in practical sense, I don't remember that comparison being done, but I remember having a conversation with Professor Rataiman, and I think he suggested that the best community mental health programs would be in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. I'm speaking under correction. And we were going to send a team there just to look at how it works, vis-a-vis some of the NGOs that have been established by the province.
So
and
was
I think,
sorry, Ms. Mahlangu, is that before you took the decision that you wanted to send a team to Italy?
I think it was with the discussion we had with him was in 2017. And remember, Council, I beg your indulgence, please, that in 20, when we're busy doing this work, my impression was that when the province was busy engaging with this work, my understanding was that the province was already implementing the community mental health programs where more than 5,000 people were already in the respective NGO. And I had no reason to worry that the 5,000 people, the more than 5,000 people are already in the NGOs, there was something to be worried about. So the discussion with Professor Rataiman really happened after the, it was in August to be exact.
But Council, at a, don't we know already, international best practice, it is well documented before us. So where are we going now?
I'm just trying to establish what was before them when they took the decision. With respect, Justice, that's an important consideration.
Sure. What I'm saying is that the content of deinstitutionalization is properly recorded and before us.
Okay,
At
I will move on.
International and, no, don't move on, international and national level. We know what the requirements are. They've been canvassed quite clearly. I suppose The different question is whether this witness apprised herself of those requirements.
Prior to
I don't know if
taking
you
the
see the
decision.
distinction. Rather than asking her the terms, we know what they are fixed, and she can change them.
Yes.
The only question is whether she knew what they were. One, two, did she apply her mind when she made the decision? So, thanks. In other words, she can be the expert on the content. The
No,
content
absolutely,
is
Justice.
independently before us. Very well.
Could I then ask you, have you applied your mind on norms and standards and best practice?
Applying my mind in a sense with looking at them to the greatest of detail, the answer is no.
Thank you.
However, no, I need to qualify my point because Justice, if you look at page 7 on the LR 3132 of the document I submitted, you'll see on page 7, 3.3 to be exact, that the project team that was established was led by Mr. Musonekhi, the Chief Director. And it continues to describe his profile and his responsibility. It also says that Dr. Manamela was appointed to deputize him as a Director of Mental Health. And further on, the document says that the project team members were appointed by the head of department, Dr. Pani
So,
Sullivan. Justice.
I've just said to the witness in isiZulu, you are galloping, just allow me to get to where you are. Okay, ma'am.
Good page, sorry, LR 132.
Yes.
Page 7.
Okay, yeah, bon, thank you.
Ms. Mahlangu, we will get to the effect of the plan
Counsel.
and everything. I'm just
No,
at the
Counsel.
time that you made the decision.
Counsel, can I please
Can I
answer your
just finish,
question in
please?
this manner that I prefer to answer so that you can get your response?
Justice, could I just ask that the witness point her answer to the time that the decision was made and not
Yes.
in the coming years and when the plan was established, please?
Yes. Council would like to know what considerations you made at the time the decision was made.
Justice, through you, I understand the question, but I need to answer it. Let me
Okay,
answer it in the
proceed.
manner that...
Answer, let's listen.
The answer to the question, the first part is as follows, that there's a project team of well-qualified people here. There's psychiatrists, there's medical doctors, there's nurses, there's colleagues from the infrastructure, there's HR, the CFO, and the communications teams and legal, including supply chain. These individuals are duly appointed by the head of department, as you see in this document. So my answer to council is the expertise of the individuals' names were part of the project team. I had full confidence in them, that they know what they're doing with all the things that the norms and standards, because if you're a mental health specialist, you'd know what the norms and standards are, as well as any other requirements that you need to understand. If you're an orthopedic specialist, you'll understand your responsibilities. Yes, okay.
You have answered. You said, here's the team, here are the people who know the field, and I did not have to be the expert myself.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, Counsel.
Thank you, Justice. The team was not appointed prior to you making the decision. And I'm at the stage of making the decision, not at the implementation stage. I just want to make that clear. You said you're the political head, you're not part of the implementation of the plan. So I'm testing you on the premises as the political head. So please let us leave that plan for a moment. I want to know, at the time of making the decision, was it an informed decision from your side?
Yes, I think it was informed because, again, I worked with a lot of specialists, people who have expertise in public health, medical doctors, nurses, and all of those. My assumption is they know what they tell me something, I should believe them because they are competent people and they've got skills in the area.
One of the things for this deinstitutionalization to work is that there should be an upscaling of community service. Do you agree?
Yes, and I answered earlier, Justice, through you, that Gauteng Health had already started with the community upscaling at the time I came into the picture.
And I presume that it would have then been very important for you to upscale the NGOs.
But the department was already doing it even before I arrived.
So important that you would refer to it in your budget speech, no doubt.
Yes, of course. My budget speech, if you care to know, is drafted by asking the different units to give input into the people I work with in my office to draft the speeches. On the basis of that, then the speech is drafted, finalized, and I go to the legislature and I present the budget speech.
But of course, the core question for my MEC is community-based treatment of mental health care users required you to upscale the capacity of NGOs. I think the answer there is plainly yes, isn't it?
Yeah, the answer is plainly yes.
And you say it in your budget speech yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolute justice.
Council, you've got an answer.
Thank you. Could I refer you to LR 134 and LR 135, which is the budget speeches respectively of 2014, 2015, and 2015, 2016.
Okay.
Could you please show me where in the budget speeches you speak about upscaling NGOs in order to better the mental health care users' community service?
But I wouldn't remember my budget speech offhand.
But please look at it.
So I must take more than an hour to read the speech.
Will it take that long? Then we can let
You
this
please
issue.
refer me to the section, and if it's not there, it's not there. But please refer me to it. These speeches I made in different financial years, and I can't remember at the top of my head which page and is what document. I think you're being unfair, Councillor.
You said to me in the earlier questions, of course you refer to it in your budget speeches. Was that not your answer?
But because I assume that you had read the speech and you know what you're asking me.
No, ma'am, I'm not under oath to speak the truth. You are.
Justice, maybe may I request to
Yes,
address
Mama,
you?
let's try and make progress. We have to get on with this and get to the facts. Council, do you know the passage you want to refer the witness to?
It's not in there that I could find. I was hoping the witness
So I'm
will
being
find
misled,
it.
Justice.
I beg your pardon?
So she's misleading me.
No, we can't go there. No. Council says, here's your budget speech. Show us the part where you dealt with NGOs. No, we're not at the stage of misleading. I don't think you're misleading. I don't think council would not and dare not mislead. So let's not throw accusations around. The question is, here's your budget speech. Is it in the budget speech? It may be in or it may not be in.
I don't want to be unfair to the witness. I will get her the opportunity until after lunch, and then if she finds anything in the judges, then we can perhaps deal with it.
We defer the question. You read it and then come with an answer. But certainly we're not in the game of misleading either way.
My learned friend referred you to LR 124 yesterday. Can you remember? That is the National Health Policy Framework and Strategic Plan. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Can you please go to page 23 of that?
I'm sorry, Council, I wasn't attentive enough. You said Ella how much?
LR 124, Justice.
124, thank you.
And I'm referring to page 23 thereof.
Okay. Page what?
Page 23, paragraph 1, I'm going to refer to.
Again, I must ask Council, paragraph.
Paragraph 1, Justice, on
Thank
page
you.
23.
Much appreciated, thank you.
My learned friend has taken you through this yesterday. Have you got page 23?
So I can't find it.
Can somebody please help the witness to find?
can't find this. What page is that?
We didn't paginate this.
So there's no page numbers.
The page numbers is at the bottom of the page.
No, there's no page numbers here.
Okay, let me look at it.
It's not here.
Ella 124. Give her that one.
My LA 1242 does not have page 23.
Okay, give the judge in front of us, please. Give the judge that one. Justice, we're just giving you another copy that was handed in earlier with
Yes.
page numbers.
I see. I'm grateful, thank you.
Are you aware of this
So it's page 24.
policy
You
framework?
say page 24.
Yes.
Sorry?
Page 24.
I'm going to refer to page 23, but can I just ask you, have you got page 23 in front of you?
Yes, I have.
And do you know this policy?
Yes, I do.
And we know that in terms of the Mental Health Care Act, or the National Health Care Act, you must give leadership to implement this policy. You agree with that?
Yes.
Now look at the policy. It says by 2020. Do you
Page
see that?
24.
Page 23, ma'am. Paragraph 1. Just before paragraph 1, it says by 2020.
On page 20, the 23, there's this diagram.
Oh, no,
So that's
go-
24, the next page.
oh, no, oh,
Can
no.
somebody help us? It looks like that, man.
No, I'm
So-
saying it's here. It's just,
Uba King, or have you found it?
this is 24 of mine, of this document. But I think this is the same.
Somebody will
information.
bring it to you now, please, if you just.
Okay.
The staff employed just to make your life a little easier.
Oh, just give her a blue. Nobody else got a blue one.
I've seen it. Could somebody give the witness my version? Aviwe. Bamba Ntombi.
Just give the judge your blue one.
Okay.
Isn't that
Thank you, Justice.
okay?
Can take her. And that's nothing.
Thank you. Do you see the community mental health services will be upscaled?
Yeah, yeah. Please proceed. Page 23.
Yes, I see that you're throwing documents around. I'm not sure why.
I am giving someone that I'm with, who's not a lawyer, the document, my previous budget speech, to go through them whilst I'm sitting here, so that at lunchtime I have a sense of to remember what would have happened.
Thank you.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, we do have usherers around if you want something moved around. Just raise your hand, Uba King, and our viewer will be available to help you.
Sorry, Justice, my apologies. I've never
Yes.
been in this kind of
Sure,
setup
sure,
before,
no.
so I
No, it is-
apologize
It is not
for.
acceptable to throw
for-
things around. They are here and they are employed to facilitate the proceedings for all of us, including you. So when you need anything, or you need water, or you need whatever, just let us know, and they will run around to move documents when you want that to happen.
Thank you, Justice, and my
Thank you.
apology again.
Thanks. Counsel?
Thank you, Justice. It says on page 23, by 2020, and then paragraph 1, community mental health services will be upscaled. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
To match recommended national norms. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And to include 3 competents. See that?
Yes.
Can you read the 3 competents, please?
Community residential care, including assisted living and group homes. daycare services, and outpatient, including general health outpatient services in PHC and specialist mental health care support.
Could you please read the next paragraph?
These community mental health services will be developed before further downscaling of psychiatrist hospital can proceed in accordance with the...
Just stop there, please. So that part of the policy document goes directly against the decision that you've made. Would you agree?
Not necessarily, Council, because, and the reason why I was going back to the appointment of the project team and the caliber of the project team members, it's at the core of what you're asking. That's point number one. Point number two, which I've said repeatedly and I'd like to repeat, that Gauteng would have been involved in, would have started the community mental health care services and programs long before I came. For instance, in Bullet 2, the daycare services, I was informed through you, Justice, that there is a very beautiful daycare services somewhere in the west, and what else is the north, it's the east of Tshwane, Ekangala, that is in the township, and I think there's another one somewhere in Johannesburg, and I was told that those daycare services are the best model to look into. So those things, as far as I know, from what I've been told by the officials who are very competent, as you see the list, and many others that are not on this list, who said daycare services exist already in the province. We must just upscale on those. The outpatient services, in the project team, you'll see, Justice, that there are people who are called chief directors from the respective regions, and their role is to look after clinic. When it says PHC, it's talk about primary healthcare facilities. So that is the intention, because you've got to have a relationship between what is being said here in the policy and the people who participated in the project team in order to meet what is being said in the policy.
Yes. Now, what the policy says is, let us stop until we're sure everything is right. Did you interrogate that when you took the decision?
That's not my understanding. The policy, as far as I know, I think Prof. Freeman can answer better. But from what I understood, if the policy had said, let us stop, Gauteng would not have started even before I came to start the community mental health care. Secondly, my understanding of the community mental health services is that they are developmental. You're not going to sit and wait for 2020 to start with community mental health care. You'll start gradually. Hence the beginning, I don't know where Gauteng started. They said more than 5 years. When they started, it was that process of being gradual and developmental to build the capacity of NGOs. That's what I understood and what's what I've been informed. And I think that's not in conflict with the policy.
But the core question surely must be, you must stop until you have well and adequately resourced community-based facilities, isn't it so?
Justice?
You can't roll out to NGOs that don't have the capacity to provide the care, can you? May you? Or does the policy allow you to do that?
No, the policy says, as far as I know, I'm saying, if you put the intention of the police was to say, don't do anything, I don't think Gauteng, even before I came in, would have started doing that. My understanding is, and again, I'm not a policy expert, my understanding is that, as I said, Prof. Freeman, this is his unit at National, he can give a better answer. The understanding of a community developmental approach in delivering service is really the realization that you're not going to achieve everything at one go, but you do it gradually. As hence, when the Gauteng team said to me, we have been doing this for a while, we've got better understanding of this, I had no reason to disbelieve that.
Can I just...
Of course, you're talking more concerned about whether you knew or did not know. I'm saying as a matter of policy. Look at the document on page 23.
Yes, I'm looking at it, Council.
It warns that, excuse me, it warns that your community-based facilities must be fit for purpose.
I do not disagree with that, Justice.
Yes, no, you cannot.
But furthermore, Justice,
requirement, yeah.
But furthermore, Justice, I think it's important to say that when the team in Gauteng says to me, we have been doing this, there are centers of excellence in their view, I have no reason to doubt that because these are
Yes.
professionals.
Well, you had a different point now. The second point is, did you believe them? And I'm not probing that. I was just saying for a moment, the policy requires the NGOs to be ready and to be fit for purpose. And the law could not possibly say, or policy could not say, send them there, even if they are not ready. It
No,
can't.
that's not the intention of the policy.
Yes, indeed. Counsel?
Can I just make sure I understand you correctly, Ms. Mhlaba? What you're saying is it wasn't necessary for me to look at this policy because I knew everything was right. I could cancel Life Esidemini. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know when you say I didn't look at the policy. I know about the policy. The policy exists. Over and above that, there are officials whose core responsibility and professional responsibilities are to make sure that the policy gets implemented.
But what you're saying is, let me just rephrase that. You're saying, yes, I looked at the policy, but the policy has already been implemented in Gauteng. So it was safe to cancel Life Esidemini. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we can say that.
Thank you. Can you just read the last sentence before paragraph 2?
This includes capacity development for users, service users, their families to provide appropriate self-help and peer-led services, for example, as community health workers.
Do you have any community health workers employed in Gauteng?
Yes, Gauteng has gotten more than 5,000 community health workers, I think. I don't know exactly the number, but there's a lot.
And what are their job description?
Is to work in communities and link communities with their services in the clinic.
With mental health?
They're part of the services when they go to different NGOs. That's part of their work.
With their mental health care community health workers?
But we're not appointed mental. There's no specific community health workers for this and that discipline. Community health workers deal with all aspects of health-related issues.
Can I ask
I don't remember any province that has got specific mental health care workers that are only looking at mental health. I'm not aware of that.
Are you aware of the white paper on the rights of people with disabilities in the implementation matrix 2015 to 2030?
Broadly, I'm aware, but I don't know the nitty-gritties of the policy.
Can you remember when it became a white paper?
Ooh, I'm not sure. I'll be lying to you.
Did you have regard to this when you took the decision?
Yes, we took into account all government policies.
I'm not talking about we. I'm talking about you. You, the politician, you must give guidance.
No, this is we. There is no you. There is no decision that is made by one person, because if the Department of Health is run by Qedani, then that will be a disaster. Society will really be a failure.
It seems that had already happened, Ms. Mahlangu.
No, the point I'm making, Council, can I please make the point, is there is no politician who individually can say this must happen and everything else happen tomorrow. Things are not individualized in government. It's a team, yes, led by a politician, but it's a team of people, from the politician to a cleaner to a clerk and everybody else. That's part of the process, and it depends where a decision needs to be made and taken by who.
But you see, for my Messiah, the point that Council I understand to be making is that the Constitution and other law requires you to act in accordance with law and lawful policy.
Yes, absolutely.
So, when you do act, collectively or individually, you must act lawfully.
Absolutely.
So the question is therefore inevitable. Did you have regard to law or policy that's been put to you
as far as
before you acted? That's where the question comes from. Because that you act collectively, I understand. You've explained it quite well, understand it. But that the law binds you, qua MEC, SMEC, is beyond contestation. So she's asking, did you have regard to the law and or policy?
Yes, Justice, I took regard to the law.
And in terms of this white paper, what did you have regard to?
I wasn't involved in social development specifically, so I wouldn't know the nitty-gritties of that law.
Well, one of the things this white paper say is when you are implementing policy, you look through a lens of the Constitution, of human rights. Don't look to money, you look at human rights. What do you say to that?
Yes, that is correct.
And how did you implement that?
If you look at LR 132, in that file, for instance, there's the annexure that talks about stakeholder engagement. And the stakeholder engagement, that is in Annexure 16 in this. And it's very clear, you'll see that the HOD would have been involved engaging with number of stakeholders. So, and those engagements were not a by the way, we're very conscious effort in making sure that there is a discussion with relevant stakeholders to take part in the processes and consult with the department.
Ms.
So that
Mahlangu,
the stakeholder consultation as there was done.
I think we are going at cross purposes. My questions to you is just about at the time of taking this decision, how did you think about the human rights rather than money?
But when you take a decision, Council, the decision we took, there was no one who anticipated that the outcome will be what it is now.
Okay.
And yes, you think about all the risk associated, the possible risk, whatever, and you do everything in accordance to what the team would have told me, that this risk we're preventing, this is a risk, this is what we're trying to do, how we're going to prevent it. So at no stage, for instance, if I had probably, I don't know what's the right English word. If I had a foresight, if I had foresight, ukuthi kuzokwenzeka lokho kwenzekile.
Isazela yini?
No,
It's a hunch, is it?
foresight. If I had foresight,
Or foresight.
if I had foresight ukuthi lesinqumo esasithatha sizoqedela ukuthi kube nalo mphumela onje.
Well, the interpreter must come now. Because I'm not going to interpret, certainly not for free.
Okay, if I had foresight, Justice, I would have probably anticipated the risks and the possible outcome, but I did not have.
Okay.
And I think that's fair to say.
Okay, there's the answer.
Thank you, Justice. Ms. Mahlangu, I want to tell you, we're talking about at the time that you're taking the decision. There is a law that says you will look at policy, all the policies. Do you agree with me?
Yes, I do agree
Yes.
with you.
What you are actually saying is, you're saying, yes, there's a law that I can't drive through a red robot, but I didn't think anything will happen, so I drove through. That can never be a defense.
But I'm struggling to understand it, honestly, because you want me to answer the way you want me to answer, and when I give you the answer, which I think is appropriate, and you continue to want me to answer the way you want, and I'm not going to change my answer, Council.
Yes.
Okay, let's try this, Mame, because we need to make progress and move on here. This has been a very long arbitration hearing. Council says, in effect, there have been breaches of human rights in the treatment of mental health care users when the project, the Marathon project, was implemented. The law requires you to have regard to human rights when you plan and when you implement. Did you have regard to human rights when you planned and implemented the Marathon project? That is in essence the question, as I understand it.
Thank you, Justice.
In other words, it's a veiled accusation that you breached human rights in the way you planned and the way you implemented it. And that's the point you've got to meet. Because you are a creature of the Constitution. And MEC is contemplated in and is created by the Constitution. So you're bound by human rights. Did you have regard to that when you planned and when you implemented? That's really the question.
Justice, once again, as I said, that at the planning phases, in my understanding, that all the cautious and the relevant legislative requirements were considered and looked into. The second answer to part to the question is, did we violate human rights? Now I know human rights were violated, but it was not intentional, and that is important. And again, if I want to go back to what I said, if I had foresight of what was going to happen, if profit, maybe I would have seen ukuthi kuzikhona izinto zizenzakala ezingekho right, and then sisivale there and there as early as 2015. Kodwa angisum profit, Justice, and I'm not in a position to see izinto ezingenzakali. I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow.
If I was a prophet, Justice, I would have had foresight.
Ms. Mahlangu, other
But in
people
essence,
also.
you've heard the gist of it. I'm not
Thank
a
you.
prophet.
Yes.
If I were a prophet, I would have sensed out what was likely to happen in the future. But I don't have that capacity, and I therefore could not anticipate the violation of human rights of the mental health care users.
Ma'am, I will argue about that later. Have you had any regard to the 2010 public service regulations before you took the decision?
All raised legislation, as I said in my statement on Monday, that those regulations were taken into account.
You did. What in those
we-
regulations did you take into account?
All regulations to relate the roles and responsibility of this and that individuals, the roles of people who are employed, and so forth and so forth.
In making the decision about Life Esidemini, what did you take into consideration?
I don't have the specific section in the law. Maybe you can remind me if you have a counsel.
Did you have any regard to the National Development Plan of 2012 when you made the decision?
The NDP, yes, that's government policy.
Yes,
And
what in
if
the
you look
plan?
at the presentation,
Yes,
in one
ma'am.
of
What
my,
in the plan did you have regard to?
the
In the
NDP is
National
very,
Development
the
Plan.
NDP is very broad. It talks about community health workers related to health. It talks about, what is this here now?
Does not both those instruments also talk about consulting before one takes a decision?
But consultation, if you look at this bundle I referred to, stakeholders were consulted. And I'm not sure what do you mean by not consulting. Probably the consultation may not have been enough. And
Did
that
you
I would agree that the consultation was not wide enough. I'll take that point. But
Thank you.
consultation did happen.
But consultation happened after the fact.
But
When that was a done deal according to the minutes. Isn't that so?
But in 2015, the HOD was engaging with all stakeholders in one of the emails we're discussing, I think it was yesterday, Justice, about a meeting that would have taken place on a Monday, back and forth and all of that. That stakeholder in a meeting with Section 27 of SADC, if I'm not mistaken, that was part and parcel of those engagement that the department was involved in. So I'm not sure, which I would have been part of those, some of those meetings. And subsequently, in any other meeting that I was available to attend, I definitely did attend.
I thought you'd meet the point Council is making that activity occurred once it was announced that cancellation of the contract had been done.
From what I know, Justice, that
That is what Council says. She wants you to respond to that belated cancellation. Consultation.
From what I see in these documents, the engagement with these stakeholders, some stakeholders, had been happening as early as, I think, in March 2015 or so. I would just have to peruse over lines the exact section that
But former MEC, was that not consultation with the bed reduction, with a 20% reduction? The exchanges then were focused on the policy of province or health in province.
I just need to check it, Justice over lines. I can come back to.
Yeah, okay.
It's in one of these documents. I'll come back to.
Council, you go ahead. Your answer is, I need to check.
Thank you, Justice. I will take you through the various time periods still. You said one of your statutory duties is also to take into consideration international instruments, isn't that so?
Yes.
Now, at the time of making this decision, what international instruments did you consider?
Well, I don't have them in front of me, and I didn't bring any of them because I didn't know you were going to ask me.
Did you at all look at the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities?
My understanding that government adopted that convention as well as the Convention on Women and Children, and those every policy of government, those must be taken into consideration because South Africa ratified those conventions.
I agree with you. So I'm asking you, did you take into consideration at the time of taking this decision?
Yes, I think so, but I do not have the specific clause and what exactly in which section of the planning that's supposed to be.
You see, this convention says there will be full participation. Isn't that so? Did the mental health care users, before you made this decision, have any right to full participation?
I wouldn't know.
No, you're the one that knows.
No, I wouldn't know.
And it says that you will closely consult. Did you closely consult before making this decision?
But Council, it can be correct through justice that every decision government makes on every issue, that you consult everybody. So, I'd like to clarify, and I'm talking in general terms. And even this process of...
By everybody, you mean stakeholders.
No,
those affected by the decision.
Yes. So you will consult to the extent that a consultation is possible. And you will consult, and you may not agree with that in that consultation. So as to if Council had raised those questions with me yesterday on Monday when I left and say, I want you to look at this and this and that, I would have come with appropriate answers. This is what we did, and this is where it's reflected. This is what we did, this is where it is reflected. At the top of my head, Justice, I can't remember those.
Sure, I understand that. What worries me? Speaking from one public official to another, that's what you and I have been until I retired last year. 2 years ago. At Waverley, the families of the mental health care users met you, and you availed yourself and went to the meeting. You remember that?
Yes, I did, Justice.
Before the implementation. You remember that?
Yes. I think it was January 26th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. And I sat here listening to one family member after another. And they talk about that meeting in their evidence and tell us how explicit they were in their opposition to the plan. And that is where also the family committee ultimately was formed. And they say you never listened to them because the project proceeded. So talking about consultation of stakeholders, the question must surely be asked, why didn't you think their views were important and worth listening to? Not experts, family members.
Going to the meeting with the families, Justice, it was a conscious effort on my part to ensure that there's consultation. And in that meeting, yes, concerns were raised. And we agreed that a family committee is established. And we also agreed that I shared my number in public in the meeting. And we also agreed that I said in the meeting that each and every one of the persons who took my number, if they have any concern of whatever, they can call me directly. And I also said, when calling me, and I said to them, they must be involved, the family committee must be involved in looking at the different places where their loved one were supposed to have gone. And I said, if you are unhappy about the places that the officials will take you to, please call me and inform me that that is the case indeed, so that I can attend to that. That would have been that's what I would have undertaken and said in that meeting, Justice.
Yes, and the evidence I'm sorry.
So when,
Kuluma, okay.
when I did not get a call to say, MEC, we went to this place and we're not happy about X and Y and Z and Q, can you please intervene? I assumed, based on the reports I was being given, and that indeed things were going according to plan.
But as a bare minimum, as a political leader, but also an executive in our state, people on the ground speak to you directly. Amongst other things, they asked for a list of NGOs so that they go and see what they are, where they are, and what they offer. We know now as fact that never happened.
Justice, I asked the officials to share the information with the families. Hence, I said, go with them to these suggested places. Because on that day, I did not have a list with me, but the officials had. And I said to them, go to these places with the officials. If you are not happy, please call me. Then I can be able to intervene.
But when you left the meeting, you certainly were of the firm view that they are opposed to the project, isn't it?
I wasn't of the firm view that they have genuine concern, and those concerns, in my view, by assuring them that they must go and take part in the decision-making of choosing the places, I thought that I was giving them their comfort. Clearly, in hindsight...
Sorry, please. But, you know, thinking of a whole range of principles came to mind to me when I listened to evidence. They get to the leader of the province on health, and they make plain their opposition. But let's go a little further, MEC. After that, there's evidence before us of marches and memoranda, and you're aware of that.
Yes, I am aware of this, Justice.
Why didn't we listen to our people when they expressed such deep concern? Why didn't you sit up? You are part of the liberation struggle. You there representing our people, and they complained and are unhappy. Why didn't you listen to them?
Justice, I fully agree with the sentiments you're raising. And I'd like to say once again, if I had benefit of hindsight that I have today, I would have done things differently, because I trusted people. And I trusted that when I have gone to a meeting and assured families, I assured them that when they have issues, they must call me directly. I did not give them my PA's number. And I thought that would be comfort enough that even if they send, please call me. Right? So, and I think it's important, Justice.
Please, please. I'm having a one-to-one with you, comrade to comrade. I want to know why. Didn't you at least listen to people on the ground? Not SADC, not all the people who you thought might have an agenda, but ordinary, vulnerable South Africans who say to you, this is dangerous. And they turn out to be right. And their families do die. So I must ask that question, but why didn't you listen to them?
Justice, again, I'd like to say, with the benefit of hindsight, I could have done things differently. Because, as I said, I assumed that the assurance I had given to the families to call me, and also to assure them that they can go to the NGOs and get when the inspection is done, to go to those NGOs. When they're dissatisfied, they must come back to me.
But what about the marches, Mami? What about the memoranda? Again, not people who might have an agenda, political. Just family members come to you and say, and they come to you because you're the highest in the hierarchy. And they say, please, stop this move. It doesn't happen. They never know of the NGOs. And when the people are taken to the NGOs, they are not ready to receive the patients, and the patients die. So that question will always hang around. Why didn't you, in your political accountability, listen to the people and forget about all the other organizations?
Justice, at all material times, I thought I made myself available. And when I say I give people my number, and in many instances, I would have resolved a lot of issues with people each time they raise a concern with me or with the number that I was giving them, because I've never taken a call and someone raised an issue. I distance those things. But as I'm saying, I should have behaved differently, and I apologize. And again, I want to say I'm sorry, as I did say on Monday.
Because we have to confront that. When we face a crisis and we are a serious people, and here's one of them, where we could have followed the principle of accountability in our, not only accountability, of responsiveness. That is part of our long struggle. And I don't see it here. I look and look. I've removed my lawyer hat for a moment. I look and look. I don't see responsiveness to the pain of the people. And look where we are now. Sorry, Counsel.
Thank you, Justice.
I've interrupted your cross-examination. But I needed to have this exchange with the former MEC so that he can know exactly where I come from. We should have listened at least to our people, let alone anybody else.
Mr. Mahlangu, just to wrap up this, before this decision of yours was taken to close Life Esidemini, you didn't have any consultation whatsoever with anybody, families, stakeholders. Do you agree?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Yes. Before taking this decision to close Life Esidemini, you didn't follow a consultative process, as you should have done in terms of our international law and in terms of our government policies.
I think the consultation was not extensive. That point I agree.
No, you had no consultation. You took this decision before consulting anybody. Maybe you tried to consult on the implementation, but before taking the decision, you didn't consult at all.
Consultation maybe was not enough. That I agree. I take the point. That was not broad enough, and that is fair.
No, ma'am. I'm not saying it wasn't broad enough. I say there were no consultation prior to taking the decision.
I've given you answer, Counsel.
Do you agree with me?
I'm saying the consultation was not broad enough, and I would like to leave it at that.
Well, let us just pinpoint this. Then, before you took the decision, you didn't have any consultation.
I think I did answer, Counsel, that the consultation probably was not broad enough, and I take that point, and I've already said I am sorry and I apologize.
You see, you're not answering my question, and I don't know why you're running away from it. The question is merely you didn't consult before you took the decision.
We did not consult enough, Counsel.
Yes, thank you. Now, in terms of international law, did you have a look at the 1991 UN principles of the protection of persons with mental illness and the promotion of mental health?
I don't have the copy of that. As I said, for everything that happens in government department, all conventions and regulations are taken into account.
So you took that into account before you made the decision? Is that what you're saying? You can say no, you can say yes, you can say I don't know.
I don't know.
You don't know whether. Good. One of the principles in that, which I hope that as a responsible politician you would have taken note of, is that there must be enough resources for mental health facilities. Would you say you adhere to that?
I'm sure the budget of the department demonstrates that. This is just the mental health, the Life Esidemini, as it reflected in this, that government at all material times, whatever was budgeted for, there was always over expenditure, and it is in black and white in the document. And I think I would have highlighted those issues in my presentation on Monday.
Yeah, we're talking about the time that you took the decision, hey?
In 2015, yes, the budget, the document I kept referring to, it talks about the years straddling from 2011 up to 2015-16.
So the international obligation on you, if there's not enough resources to downscale from Life Esidemini, you shouldn't take that option. Would you agree with that?
But the resources were there, but then resources are not an infinite
I understand
in
that.
terms of availability.
So
resources are confined based on what Treasury can give. And I think it's important, Justice, for me to state this point that whatever resources you get, you've got to utilize them to the extent possible in keeping with different prescripts and legislation. And on the basis of that, that's why continuously, and I said to Justice Eli when I was making the point about the budget and the continuous overruns of the budget in the Department of Health, it is in keeping with the principle that you cannot turn away anybody from giving health care simply because of budget constraint. Yes, that as much as that principle is accepted, but in some instances, resources really do become constrained. To the extent possible, as also the law says, a government indeed will take decisions in keeping with that principle.
You know, Ms. Mahlangu, I've had evidence not only from you, from your other colleagues, Dr. Silibano, and indeed Dr. Mkacho in part, and I accept the burden of Gauteng health. And we've had evidence about how excuse me, that department has always been under budgetary stress, and for good reason. It attracts many people way beyond any other province, and you had a difficult task. And I think the point is well made. It's a point that is just as good as the need for deinstitutionalization. As you've heard me, what I'm struggling with is as and when the decision was taken to go ahead. You'll agree with me, we didn't take all the reasonable and possible steps to avert harm.
But I thought we have gone past that, Justice, because I've said, if we're to do things differently, to do them now, knowing what I know, we could have done things much more differently and taken probably different decisions.
Yes, but
and that I fully agree with you.
Here is the point. That harm was not caused by the budgetary stress, as you rightly point out. It was caused by
execution.
Execution. Negligent, unreasonable, and reckless execution. That's really what caused it. So it wasn't money here, because we know 190 million was budgeted, for instance, for this implementation. So I just wanted to say, I fully acknowledge the stress, budgetary stress. I don't understand the implementation. And I don't see the connection there between that and the money. And you may want to respond to that.
But Justice, I will not disagree with you because, as I said, and in my statement I said, if, for instance, the project was implemented differently, the outcome probably would not be sitting here today. That I agree with you, and I have no contestation with that. So, and again, even the issues of resources, yes, they are constrained, but we are compelled by law to provide services, whether it is money or not. That's why there's continuous overruns. So, but we must take reasonable steps to save that. So I agree with you. I have no contestation of the point whatsoever.
No, thank you. I misunderstood you there, and I thought you meant the budget stood in the way of proper implementation.
No, I'm not. Implementation,
not that,
execution went wrong, Justice, and I've said that a couple of times.
Sure, thank you. Counsel?
Ms. Mahlangu, I'm still at the time of taking this decision. We know, you knew that the policy said can't go ahead until you've upscaled. You're right. Is that right?
But the policy doesn't...
let us just, I'll get to the question. Just agree with me. You've already said you know about the policy, that you must upscale. Isn't that so?
But Counsel, if I were to answer the question, the policy says yes. When I arrive in health, the Department of Health is already started with implementing community mental health. So what would I be saying?
Okay, can I move on?
The
international instrument says you must resource if you want to downscale. Do you agree with that?
The officials, when I arrived in health, I was told more than 5,000 mental health care users are already with the NGOs.
Okay, so what you're telling us, you took this decision on the undertaking to close Life Esidemini, that there was enough NGOs and hospitals where the people could go.
Because they'd already started the work of the institutionalization.
So you agree with me that that was your understanding?
Yes, that was my understanding.
There were no warning bells on that issue?
No, till
could you please go to your statement, your Annexure B that you handed in the first day? Annexure B to your
I'm
first
getting-
statement.
I'm getting there.
It's in the smaller file of the two.
Annexure B, yeah?
Okay, please go to page 6. The numbers is at the bottom, right-hand corner. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
You say this is the decision that was taken. Do you see that?
Yes.
You agree with me? And your saving that you say in the first, it says item, and under item it says Life Esidemini. Do you see that?
Yeah, yeah.
Then the next column says final notice to be issued in December to begin the termination of the use of beds starting 2015. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that.
And that's the decision that you say.
So,
Just yes or no, and then you can explain. Let us just get an answer, please.
Justice, if I may say, remember when I said, can I take you through the document?
Yes.
And I kept on saying, no, you can't take through the document. And I think this is exactly the point that if I were to take you, I had taken you through the document to explain myself with this document, it will be better because now you asking me a question in isolation with a broader, what this presentation was all about.
No, I'm not asking this. Ms. Mahlangu, you've explained this to us, and we really read and prepare everything you give us. I'm just asking you, did I read correctly? That is what it says there.
Can you please repeat your point?
Could you read under inward-looking savings? Could you read what it says?
Yeah.
Please read it.
Final notice to be issued in December to begin a termination of the issue of beds starting in 2015.
Yes. So what you're saying there is, in December 2014, you will terminate and you will start.
No, Council, no.
Which December are you referring to?
Justice, may I please take the meeting through the
Yes,
presentation? Because this is appropriately incorrect. The cost containment measures are part and parcel of how departments must perform, right? In order to try and make sure that the budget, there's cost effectiveness in running of government. And these things must be seen in totality. Yes, now we're discussing life in specifically, but they must be seen in totality. What do I mean by that? What is being said here, that in 2014 you go to the budget process. The effect of the budget process of what is discussed in 2014 will be effected in the 2015-2016 budget. What this point that Council is talking about, it simply says that we go to the budget committee in 2014, we submit the supplementary presentation, which is this, and then thereafter the department then has to go back and say, so how do we work backwards to ensure that when the budget is finally approved, because there's timelines by Treasury, by this time we should have submitted this document, that document. That's all what this is saying. The contract was, I think Life was only informed, I don't know exactly when, but you should have the contract date cancellation. They were notified, I think, 6 months before the termination of the contract. The contract was not cancelled in 2015, so your interpretation is wrong here.
No, I'm not saying the contract was cancelled in 2014, ma'am. I'm saying that it says final notice to be issued in December. Is that not what it says?
Final notice of what?
I don't know. It's your document that you're explaining, ma'am.
But that's why I'm explaining.
Okay.
That
Let us move on. Let us just move on. Let us look at under potential savings there. Do you see what it says?
Yes.
And what does it say under potential saving?
20% of 251 per month, per annum.
Yes, and the 251 million per annum, that refers to all the beds at Life Esidemini, isn't
Pardon?
it? Ma'am, the 250 million refers to what you were paying for Life Esidemini, isn't that
But
so?
if you go down and you look at the actual amount that they're talking about, the 251 is a total budget. But if you look at the bottom, the savings for that year that is being talked about is a 50 million
Yes,
rand.
because it's talked only to 20%.
But the 20% of this is a 50 million.
Yes. So 20% is what you wanted to save. So your plan before the budget meeting, the next one, was only to reduce 20% of Life Esidimeni's cost. Do you see that?
But for the financial year before the contract is cancelled and actualized.
Please just look at what your own document says, ma'am.
But I'm looking at the document.
Yes. It doesn't say we're cancelling. It says we'll take away 20%. Isn't that what the document says?
No. Well, potential savings. That's what it's talking about.
Yes, in the next financial year, ma'am. That's what it says. Okay? So you say it wasn't
Well,
that.
I'll leave it that that's your interpretation, but that's not my understanding of what you're saying here.
We will still go there. Can you please go to the risks, which you've put before that committee? Can you please read the risks?
The departmental institution may not have adequate capacity to absorb patients from Life Esidemeni.
That must have been news for you.
Yes.
Seeing that your document says this.
Yes, and then...
And the department says there were enough.
And
so
then
what did you do with this?
And if you go to the documents that, I think some of them are in the different bundles that we have, that demonstrate the readiness.
Yes, ma'am, we'll get to that. But
no,
cancel.
No, cancel.
Sorry,
Justice.
I have to come in there. Again, we have to... This is a question and answer session. I would like... I ask you, Counsel, to repeat the question.
Yes.
So I can ask the witness to answer it.
Thank you, Justice.
Which she has to do.
At the time of taking this decision, which you say it's according to this document, it says that there's a significant risk that the department would not have adequate capacity to observe 20% of Life Esidemeni's patients. What do you say to that?
No, the 20% way to get that. It says that department is not, departmental institution may not have adequate capacity to absorb patients from Life Esidemeni. It's not talking about a 20%, and I'd like to take you to the presentations and the reports thereof.
Ma'am, I will take you to all
cancel.
Would you tell us what the presentation will show us?
Let me just
and
go.
Then we can go to the detail. I just want to know, the presentation will provide which answer?
Just give me a moment, Justice, please.
Yes.
So, for instance, if you look at the document on page 8, which I would have, and on LR 138, on LR 132, right? That document talks about the project that has been, you're talking that the department may not have enough bed to accommodate the Life Esidemeni. And in this document, there may be others. This is the latest I could lay my hands on. That talks about the 3 identified psychiatric institutions, as well as the different NGOs that were going to accommodate
Where are you reading from? Page 8? Page?
From page 8, Justice.
Thank you.
Yes. The identification of hospitals.
Yes.
That's 4.1. Point number 2, identification of NGOs. Point number 5, it talks about renovations in the respective hospitals. So I'll confine myself to these 4 points. Because whatever document you read in government, there has to be a relationship with another document. It may or not all be in one set of documents. And if indeed I had known the line of questions, I would have prepared the documentation in that context.
4.2, you say answers which question?
No, I'm saying 4.1, for instance, the council is raising an issue. Council is raising an issue on page 161, the slide presentation on the budget.
Yes.
That the risk identified says the department may not have adequate beds in the hospitals. And we've been through that in my presentation on Monday, right? And further, because of that, then she says the department was not ready. And I'm saying to her, in looking at this slide presentation, you must also go back to this document that I'm referring you to now that says, Yes, there's identification of hospital by the team, project team, that would have been reflected to on page 17, on page 7. Furthermore, on item 4.2, the identification of NGOs, right? Item number 5, it talks about renovations.
Yes. So you're saying when the slide says there's no extra capacity for mental health care users, it's something that must be looked at in relation to page 8.
Yes, and all other presentation and documents that would have been...
And that subsequently, and that's your point, subsequently your technical staff told you that there is capacity.
Yes.
That is a point you're
Yes, that's a point I'm making.
Right.
You remember, just sorry to interject, you identify the risks, then you go back and look at how do we mitigate the risks, and in ensuring that those we have enough space in the NGOs as well as in the hospitals concerned.
Yeah, but okay, following that answer, you look, for instance, at 4.1. Let's look at some detail. Hospitals have to plan for staff members who will manage patients in the newly renovated wards.
Yes.
So that depended on renovation.
Yes, and the HR issues, there's a plan also on HR which I spoke about yesterday in the same annexure.
And then there's copies, and then they say they've appointed 146, 34, and 27 staff members from LE.
There's annexure 20.
Annexure 20.
Yes.
So you say that they would have employed people already to anticipate the reception of the patients.
Yes.
Okay.
Remember, this is information I'm being given by a competent team.
Yes. We know now, you and me know now that this was never implemented, right?
Yes, yes, Justice.
You were told then that, but that in fact that plan was never implemented.
But that's what I'm trying to say, Justice, that as a benefit of hindsight, if you are given something in black and white with the competent people and everything, it looks like is right. And I'm sitting here, I'm being cross-examined, but you should have. When all signs indicate to me that, no, but we are okay, yes, that risk is identified, we are attending to those issues.
But look at 4.2.
Yes.
Mental health services team from both the provinces and districts identified the NGOs, okay? Then together with the engineers from the Department Infrastructure Unit, assessed and supported the suitability of the NGO's infrastructure. Let's stop there. Now we know all that was hopelessly inadequate, isn't it?
Yeah.
There is what's written on paper here, and you say that is what you knew. But now we know that that never happened. It was, okay? Let's move on. Many new NGOs were identified, as many of the existing NGOs would not cope with the added number of patients. Can you see that?
Yes, I see that, Justice.
So you were told then already that new NGOs were identified because the existing ones would not cope, and with the added numbers of patients. So at least that was told to you. Most of the identified NGOs were disqualified during the process due to lack of resources and know-how. I'll stop there, but this is the report that you say would have told you the state of play.
Yes, not only that, Justice, I just can't find the other document, I'll source it as well, that would have said the NGOs, I think it's in one of the presentation, I'll get it for you now. The list of NGOs, when those were disqualified, which NGOs were added in the process. I'll find the document and I'll point it to you now.
But before we go to that document, we know also from our MEC that the renovations were not done.
In the hospitals?
Yes.
Yes, that's why I remember, Justice, I said initially my understanding was we're going to take most mental health care users to hospitals, but when they changed, more patients were taken to NGOs rather than to hospitals.
And we know now that even in this report, despite this report, the NGOs that they took people to ultimately, in the words of this report, lacked resources and know-how, isn't it?
Yes, that's what it said, the report says.
In their report, they say they're disqualified, they lack resources and know-how, and they still contrary to what you say you knew, they still send people to those NGOs, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
And your case is what? Is that they thoroughly misinformed you?
Justice, if you look at the presentation, for instance, if you look at a transportation plan, and you look at the placement plan, and you look at, of course, the NGO budget, we went through that yesterday. You look at the post-placement support and all of that, and the staff, members of staff from Life, as well as receiving of patients from the different hospitals. So I think you have this bundle, probably you can go through it and look at the issues that I'm saying. But if you have that information at your disposal, yes, you worry, but you say, okay, these people know, they've identified a risk and they're attending to it as it were, in respective of
You
this.
see, you and I know and agree now, this plan was worth nothing.
Absolutely.
That's why people died. Now, the remaining question is, why didn't you know? And I think that's what informs most of your answers. Why didn't you see the red lights? And that's really where council was when we got down this route. Again, a very long interruption. Council?
Thank you, Justice. Mr. Klan, my position is I'm testing you as a political person, not on the implementation. The document, and I want you to please just pay attention to page 1 of Annexure B to your papers. It says this was on the 26th of November, 2014. That's at the time that you took the decision. Do you agree?
In December 2014, yes, that's where the presentation
now,
made to
what
the
you've
Budget
just
Committee.
referred the Honourable Justice Moseneke to was a document that was authored after the extension, and it's dated August 2016.
Yes, it's a close-out report.
I'm just getting both facts on. So what I'm telling you, that's part of the implementation. I'm asking, at the time that you took the decision, you were told on page 6, a 20% reduction, and we're not sure whether there's enough capacity, and yet you took the decision.
No, Council. And I think I've answered the question in so many ways.
Okay, are you saying it wasn't a 20% reduction, or are you saying there wasn't capacity?
The 20% in this regard relates to the amount of money that we're going to save.
Yes, but how do you save 20% of 100% if you take all the patients away?
No, but we're talking of, remember, we're talking of the first financial year. The decision, the cancellation, I think, if I don't know what, it was effective from, I think September 2015. That would have been 6 months into the financial year.
Are you saying?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, it would have been.
Are you saying, Ms. Mahlangu, that there was never a decision taken that only 20% of the beds will be reduced?
But the 20% was already in existence. It was not something new.
Is that what you're saying? Are you standing by that?
No, I'm saying the 20% was already, I found it when I got into the department. What we're talking about
I'm going to differ with you. Please go to LR 126.
Which one is that?
But let's understand the proposition also, Council. You say LR 126 will show that the 20% reduction of beds was inducted only in 2014, 2015?
2015.
You say that that's the first time it was inducted?
No.
Because I'm trying to save time. The witness says, no, it was there before then.
Do you see LR 126?
Yes, I do.
Can you read the date on it? Do you agree that's the 11th of March
11th of March 2015, sorry.
And it's addressed to the Manager Director of Life Esidemini?
Yes. I can see
and
that.
it says the purpose. Can you read the purpose of the letter?
So the communication is to avoid Life Esidemini leadership decision taken for reduction of beds from 2015-16 financial year book year.
Can you read the introduction? No, let us just take the discussion. Can you read that?
Yeah.
Please read the discussion.
Following the meeting chaired by the MEC in February 2015, The MEC advised Life LE senior managers on the decision taken to reduce Life LE beds and discussed the challenge of cost to continue funding the contracted care, and that the beds need to be reduced as soon as possible by a further 20% by April 2015. The department, together with Life, has to develop a plan to reduce that.
So this is a 20% reduction later after your November meeting. Do you agree?
But the council, can you please, let's look at the date when the letter is signed.
Yes.
And look at what it says.
March 2015.
But it says that the base must be reduced by 20% in 2015, April. And that is 1 month.
Yes.
In 1 month.
And that's not sufficient, you say?
But I'm saying, but it doesn't make sense.
I'm anxious, both counsel and witness, about the time we're spending on this.
Could I just take you to LR1?
You have to help me, counsel, and tell us the significance of this in the whole scheme of things.
Justice, what we're suggesting is that there were really no plan, and this is what we're trying to show. And the decision was taken irrationally.
Yes.
So I'm
the 20% plan, reduction plan, is not in dispute, is it? It existed. Whether it started in 2014, 2013, or 2015, it was there. That was the modus of cost containment. And that modus changes drastically somewhere to termination. That debate I understand, but you know, whether it was in for a year or 2 or 3, it's something that maybe we should not be spending so much time on.
Yes.
Okay.
Could I please refer the witness to LR 135? Now, that's your budget speech that you made 3 months later. Would you agree with me? It's a copy of your budget speech.
I have not read it, so I don't know exactly what it says. I forgot now.
Don't worry, I will take you to the appropriate part.
Well, there's a minute before the lunch break.
It will be very quickly. Might I just finish this point, Justice,
so
if you will allow
one?
me?
And yes, certainly. But that would also mean you have to give me some indication of how much more time you need.
It's going much slower than I anticipated, and I'm
very, very slowly.
Yeah, I'm struggling to get short answers, Justice.
Yes, I understand.
I was hoping to finish by 3, but I don't think I'll finish by 3.
No blame at all. I just want to understand our way forward. It's quite important. Also in relation to Professor Grobler. So all of those things come into play,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
also the waiting time of the rest of your colleagues. All of those things are vital.
Thank you.
And it's been a long hearing, so I would like to urge all of us to zoom into the big issues, because we really have to get there now. So this is a concern I'm expressing to you, to all counsel. We need to get singene emxholweni. Kuthiwa ngeXhosa, you are from a Xhosa speaking area, Advocate Krause. Ngene entweni. So it's very important. But so your idea is you probably would run up to around 3 o'clock?
It started off as that. I don't think I'll be finishing before 4-ish or even longer, Justice.
Okay, because we at some point we just keep that in mind all the time.
Ms. Mahlangu, could you please move to page 25?
Which speech there? 135?
Yes.
Okay.
LR 135, page 25. Page
Okay.
numbers are at the right-hand bottom. Do you see that?
Yes.
In the middle of that page. Do you see that?
Yes.
It says, with regard to Life Esidemini, can you read that?
With regard to Life Esidemini, the department has already commenced with the reduction of number of beds by 20% in the 15-16, with a view to exit the arrangement at the end of 16-17 financial year.
Is that right?
But remember, I said to you, the 20%, in my understanding, this was emphasis of what was already existing in the department. So the 20% was already there. And the 16-17, that's why in the budget I was pointing to you, Council, you'll see the number, the budget's coming down to 276 million.
And the idea, was it ever that it would last for 5 years?
Pardon?
Was the idea ever that the Life Esidemini contract would be finalized in a 5-year period?
And I was not aware of that.
Okay. Could you please go back to LR 126?
Okay.
You see introduction?
Yeah.
Just read the last, the second part.
But this is that's a letter written by the HOD,
yes,
which I was not party to.
Yes, but the HOD is your...
But he didn't consult me in the letter, so he wrote a letter. I think
yes.
it's best to be asked the
But he implements,
question.
isn't that? So just
yes.
read the last paragraph under introduction last year.
Which one is it? And this was communicated through the presentation of the mental health strategic plan of 2013-2020.
Last year, the discussions between the Mental Health Directorate and Life Esidemini started with planning in reducing the bed occupancy rate by 200 beds by the end of March 2015, and on a yearly basis for the next 5 years. Is that right? And this was communicated through the Mental Health Strategic Plan. Nothing is said in here that we're not going ahead with the 20% beds. Do you agree?
But I'm saying this is a communication between the HOD and Life, and which he has never shared with me. So I did not know what the HOD was communicating vis-a-vis the processes of government which he was party to, and what he then communicates are the two distinct things.
And it's clear that he didn't understand the process to be otherwise either.
So I'm not sure, what is your point, Council?
Thank you, Justice.
Yes, thank you. We're going to do the usual. We're going to resume at 2:30 as always, and certainly going to sit as long as Council is still busy, so that we can at least finish that part of the cross-examination. We are adjourned.
She doesn't want to decide which line